Alright, hello and welcome back to the Ace Attorney Chronicles. The Great Ace Attorney Chronicles. Tonight we're going to be continuing the trial where we left off. We had just gotten some new information and they took a quick recess while they checked in. The 23rd of October, 10:44 a.m. Old Bailey. And Santa Chamber. Mr. Naruhodo. What on earth were you playing at just now? Or rather, what on earth were you playing at it all along? My hypothesis, my amazing hypothesis. You were picking holes at it from the start. Sorry about that, but you promised me. Yes, you said you'd prove that dreaded explosion was an accident, not murder. You said to keep my invention falling into anyone else's hands, but all you've done so far is try to undermine me. Yeah, I did make you a promise, you're right. I said that I'd believe in you and fight for your freedom to the very end. But I also told you that I was no scientist. I don't understand your hypothesis. The fact is, there's an undeniable flaw in your logic, isn't there? But if I just run through some equations... Yes, you see, it's because my work is incomplete. Perhaps it is, but nevertheless, a man died as a consequence, didn't he? Oh, no. You're right, you're so right. It's all my fault. I have no right to blame you for my fail. I'm a disaster, not just a scientist, but as a human being. Well, that might be a little over the top. No, it wouldn't be in this game if it wasn't over the top. And while we're on the subject, what about Barak? He's being awful. Claiming his own university friend to be a murderer, you mean? He's a disaster, not just as a prosecutor, but as a human being. Oh, no, he's the Reaper, isn't he? Perhaps he's not classified as Homo sapien anymore? Glad that's cleared up. Can I double-check something with you? Yes, what? The machine demonstration you prepared, they're based entirely on your hypothesis, I presume. There was no trickery involved? I drew plans of the machine with my very own hands. Every line was painstakingly drawn with a firm belief that science is the only future. So yes, it's true that my hypothesis hasn't reached maturity yet, but please, Mr. Naruhodo, you must believe in it. Alright, Professor, I understand. Counsel, defendant. The prosecution's witnesses are ready to take the stand. The court's about to begin session again. Make your way to the courtroom, please. It all hinges on that demonstration. If the professor's hypothesis is sound as he claims, it leaves him as the only person who could possibly have killed the victim. But on the other hand, Mr. Sholmes was very adamant. Practical implementation, such as what was attempted by the professor at the Grace Exhibition, is quite impossible. So really, what should I be trying to prove here? Well, we know the crossbow was fired at the guy while he was in the air, which means... because he wasn't teleported, he must have been thrown, possibly by the brute force of the explosion itself. But if that's the case, the only people who could have shot him was someone in the audience. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby reconvene the proceedings of this court. Counsels for the defense and prosecution, are you ready for the new witnesses to testify? The prosecution is ready, my lord. As is the defense, my lord. So, Lord Van Zykes, I believe the next witnesses saw the demonstration of the day in question with their own eyes. Indeed, they did. As luck would have it, one of them is a police detective, so the testimony we're about to hear can be considered highly reliable. Oh, perfect, a detective of all people. The prosecution's stance remains unchanged. Though it ended in tragedy, the demonstration on the day in question was scientifically sound. And consequently, the sole person with the opportunity to have committed this act of murder is the only other individual to have been present on the stage at the time, the accused. Thank you, counsel. The prosecution's position is clear, so bring forth your witnesses now. Bailiff, show the witnesses in. The witnesses whose proximity to the incident of the day in question will clarify the truth unequivocally. Witnesses, state your names and occupations for the court here. My name is Balthazar Loon. Name. Balthazar Loon. Oh, Balloon. I am the impresario of the hot air balloons in the vicinity of the experimental stage. My name is Wilhelm Gott Sigmund Ormstein. I have come to see great exhibition LZV from my home Bohemia. I'm very rich. Oh, Inspector Jean Lestrade, Scotland Yard. I'm a great detective. Even Sherlock Holmes agrees. I was in security during the expedition, and I got to go up one of them balloons. It was amazing. Gina again. But she didn't mention that she'd seen the disaster from up in the balloon, actually, did she? And she clearly loved every minute of it. There were 3 balloons flying near the vicinity of the experimentation stage when the incident occurred. 2 of the witnesses were on such balloon at the time and saw events unfold from the skies above. You make it sound like they were in the clouds. It was only an altitude of circa 60 feet, very low. Well, I can't see nothing if you fly too high, can ya? 60 feet, about, okay, that's about 18 meters then. Thank you for your introductions. Now you will give your formal testimony for the court. Kindly describe exactly what you witnessed, especially those of you a vantage point above the stage. Witness testimony. The view from 60 feet up. It was incident terrible. I'm only grateful that my balloons were not damaged. There's this huge bang from the stage. The next second, another bang in the sky beside us. And from amidst the smoke, a cage appeared out of nowhere. The cage fell from the sky like a stone. It crashed into the crystal tower. I didn't get a good look inside the cage, but no one went near it until after it crashed the tower. A most extraordinary collective account, I must say. Could I clarify something? There's a detail in the witness's testimony that I've not heard any of mentioned till now. Specifically that of there were 2 explosions. More precisely, 2 explosions in 2 separate places, yes. When the demonstration began, the balloon carrying the 2 witnesses was around right here. There were other balloons in the air nearby at the time, carrying other passengers as well, to be clear. Then, as power was supplied to the machine for the demonstration, the first explosion occurred. The so-called birdcage that contained the victim disappeared from the stage, and a moment later, the second explosion occurred directly adjacent to the balloon carrying the witnesses. The birdcage appeared at the site of the explosion, subsequently to plummet down into the crystal tower. I was very surprised. Suddenly a cage appeared before my eyes vis a person inside. The blast was so hot, but I didn't want to miss a thing, so I kept my eyes wide. I still have lots of money. Precisely who is Curious Infant? I'm told he is a very young noble of Bohemian royalty. Apparently he disguised himself in order to steal unnoticed into the Great Exhibition. Yeah, I'm here in London sightseeing trip via my elementary school. We will have the benefit of a child's point of view in the testimony. Do we really need that? Then I remove my mask. This is what I look like. Delightful face, I'm sure. Yeah, everybody says so. Great disguise, then. The point is, the testimony of these witnesses further substantiates the facts of the court, namely that despite an explosion, instantaneous kinesis was successfully demonstrated, and furthermore, that until the arrival of the police, no one approached the crystal tower from where the victim fell. Therefore, only the accused, who was Mr. Asma on the stage, could have possibly committed the murder. Yes, thank you, counsel. Prosecution views on the matter are quite clear. Alright, so the defense's cross-examination now, if you please. Yes, my lord. We got a lot of this to go through, but I can guarantee you this is going to be a multi-day trial. They pretty much made it clear from the very start we're going to be back here within a day or so, because first of all, Sholmes has to deal with the Wax Museum murder mystery, and we can learn how that's connected here. Like perhaps there was some body doubles being used for whatever reason in here. Or perhaps the serial killer was used to throw people off. And of course, they wouldn't even let us do any examining of the crime scene. And we obviously need to be doing that before the end here, so we're definitely going to be checking that out before the end of the case. So yeah, I'm absolutely convinced we have a second day of investigation and trial before this case is over. Alright, the view from 60 feet up. I'm only grateful that my balloons were not damaged.
Hold it!
There were 3 balloons flying high above the experimentation site, I understand. All 3 of them my bellissimi bambini. They're very popular, signal. People will often pay £10 for one ride. £10 for... that's more than my annual stipend. £20. That is my pocket money. Royals have all the luck. I got up there for free, I did. Paid with the old I work for Her Majesty police card, you know. Detectives have all the luck. Alright, so if they're so popular, why would you only be operating such a small number of balloons, though? Because if I have too many in the skies, they could crash into each other. The operators for the balloons were decided by lots, with each operator manning a particular area. See, and one above experimentation stage is the most profitable. The other impresarios, they hate me. Thank you, witness. I think the court has a clear picture of the arrangements of the balloon rides at the exhibition. Perhaps we could hear more about what you actually witnessed the incident. Right, I can play. There, my lord. There's this huge bang on the stage, and then bang in the sky beside us. So you saw the accident happen from up in the air. Yup, it's amazing what a detective gets to do, eh? I'm telling you, Odo, being a lawyer's bugs game, you gotta join the force, and we can go flying together. Oh, you know me so well. Yes, well, anyway, could you tell us exactly what you saw? Do you think? Everything. We saw everything, because we were up above it all. That dodgy cove climbing on the stage, and that dodgy professor pulling all them levers. That's when it happened. That's when there was that massive bang and the cage disappeared. Just like that. We're describing the moment the subject's body was decomposed by electricity, I believe. I didn't know what to make of it. But then there was another bang, right in the ear. Looked around and there was a huge great fireball right next to us in the sky.
That's Peter.
There's nothing there before.
Excuse me!
Excuse me, Master Gotts, does your memory of that day differ? Oh, mine teacher at elementary school said that when you meet someone for the first time, you should always use their full name. Yes, what was it again? William Sigismund Ormstein. Mr. Ormstein Smoke it is then. Just the 4 names then. Alright, the point is, do you have something to say? Something to add in response to Detective Gina Lestrade's last remark, perhaps? Or get it right, it's Inspector Lestrade. Why does everyone have a problem with how I address them at the moment? That is what I saw. Yeah, there was a second explosion and it was right beside our balloon. That is true. But I'm sure... Which is what I said, isn't it? One minute there was nothing there, next a massive explosion. My teacher at elementary school says that when someone else is speaking, if you are rude enough to interrupt, you have the most awful life imaginable. Our bohemian's brother to be so full of joy. We shall play him a rhapsody then. Just before this explosion happened to our balloon, I clearly witnessed a green balloon flying in the sky. Green balloon. You what? I never saw nothing like that. Well, I did. I saw it. Can't say I didn't. I will come to the council. I'll cry and scream. My testimony is the truth. I'm Bohemian Prince. You can't say the lie. That is not allowed. Playing the bleeding royalty card, are you? Typical. Says the orphan who likes to remind people she works for Her Majesty's police. In that case, I must ask you to amend your formal testimony in the interest of cordial national relations between Great Britain and Bohemia. It was not the sky. I saw a green balloon that was next to ours. A green balloon, you say? Are you sure about that? Of course I'm sure. I'm a proud Bohemian prince. All these questions are making me boring. I think you mean bored? Ah, English is very annoying. The language of my country is far superior. Probably, I don't know. Also, it's very wrong to lie. Lie? Flying balloons never explode. For the same reason the planets never explode. It is logical. Please tell me that doesn't mean logical. You insult me, you insult all of Bohemia. Oh my god. I will have the army come and shoot all your stupid balloons out of the sky. All of them. There you are, Your Highness. If only all international incidents were so easily resolved. Now that peaceful relations have been restored here in the courtroom, perhaps we could return to the testimony. Did you also see the moment of that cage materialize, Mr. Loon? Oh no, I didn't see a explosion myself. However, the cage fell from the sky like a stone and crashed into the crystal tower. Did you see that actually happen? No, but it did not. I saw it after it hit the tower. There was a grand confusion of mistake. I ran to see what had happened. I was terrorized by the idea that one of my balloons had crashed. I suppose they are his livelihood. What? And when I looked up at these, all my precious balloons are still in there. I saw it though. I saw a slam to the tower. After all, I'm a detective now. And then please tell us what you saw, Inspector Lestrade. That's what I like to hear. Get a good look inside the cage, and no one went near it after it crashed in the tower. Hold it! Alright, so was it you who gave the order to keep people away? You... Sir Ed, Odo. How could it be me? I was up with the balloon, weren't I? Right. Of course I weren't. Fail, but it was the boss who had to leg it over there. He was getting shoved and kicked all over by the panicking spectators as he tried to see off the scene. It was a real sight to behold, I can tell ya. Amazing. Poor Inspector Gregson. So anyway, I couldn't cage all that well because of all the smoke. I didn't really want to see, to be honest. I was scared out of my wits. Keep it together, Inspector. The prosecution really is asserting the demonstration was genuine, but what if it was actually some kind of switch-around trick instead? That would mean the victim was never actually on the stage in the first place. The two explosions would have thrown everyone watching them panic for sure. I think I need to find out more about what exactly people saw at the time. Oh, so this is a part of the balloon here. I think I need to show this here.
Objection.
Nope. Surely something about that last statement seems odd, doesn't it? Would you care to mull over precisely what you find odd about it on your return journey to Japan? I wouldn't be back to give the court an answer for about 4 months, though. Rest assured, we shall be happy to carry proceedings forward in your absence, counsel. He sounds serious. I have to prove my worth before he really does send me back home. This supports what he says, it doesn't contradict it.
Objection!
Yeah, that's... Yeah, I think I'm on the right track here. I just need to figure out what I need to do here. Oh, grateful the balloons were not damaged.
Objection!
So yeah, this is one. Was on the right track and needed to show it. Alright, Mr. Loon, in your testimony, you said that all 3 of your balloons you had operating at the time were undamaged. Gee, if they had been caught in the explosion, that would have been terrible. I wonder if you might know what this is. Ah, I think it may be... Yes, part of a balloon. A burnt piece of fabric on the envelope. I'm sorry, the envelope? Pardon. Pardon. No, I think he's supposed to have more of an Italian accent, but I'm not sure I can get that right. Pardon. That is the large round part of the balloon which gets filled with hot air. It is made from a very thick fabric lined with rubber. You do not want it to rip when you are in the sky. Just as I thought. So this piece of cloth was found near the experimentation stage. In other words, as Master Gotts testified, a green balloon did indeed explode that day. Eh? If all the balloons in the sky above the experimentation stage belong to you, Mr. Loon, then your statement that they were all undamaged clearly contradicts the evidence. No! The balloon exploded that day. Why didn't the man say so? Everyone on board was killed. Oh no, I just spent 10 old pounds of the experience. How awful. Excuse me, like things crash 50% of the time anyway.
Objection!
The instantaneous kinesis did occur, but after the explosion on the stage, the point of materialization shifted to a location occupied by a balloon. Causing the balloon to explode? Yes, eminently plausible. Unfortunate traffic accident, as it were, but changes nothing about the pertinent facts. This I cannot accept. Why not, Mr. Loon? You are suggesting that a person's died in the balloon. There's no need to get fired up, Mr. Loon. The victim was the sole fatality that day. That's right, I can prove it. Officer Loon's not a liar. There's no such balloon in the sky. It's not possible. You're saying it's impossible. Why? This court has more important matter to discuss than the number of balloons that were operating that day.
Objection!
But we can't ignore the fact that nobody appears to have known anything about this other balloon until now. Lord, the defense calls for further testimony from Mr. Loon. I concur. There is clearly more to the truth here than meets the eye. It is imperative we clear up this issue of the phantom balloon, I feel. Witness, you will give supplementary testimony about the balloons you were operating in the exhibition. Grazie, my lord. Witness testimony. Mr. Loon's balloons. As I said, Officer Loon's no lie. Every balloon I have in the sky lands safely. All 3 were carrying passengers. They fell to the ground in an explosion. It would be a catastrophe. But you can't get away from the fact that a burnt up bit of cloth found on the scene, can ya? Opens the yard records probably some debris falling from the explosion on the stage. That guy's mistaken. My balloons have the red and blue zigzag stripes anyway. So your assertion is the balloon this child saw was not one belonging to you? Si, exactement. Exactement. Even if he saw the balloon, I do not like the sound of it. It's very bad for business. Have a good mind as to the land of Bohemia. If you attack us, we will fight back. It will be war, all-out war. What just happened to all-out war? Mr. Loon certainly doesn't appear to be lying, but that doesn't change the fact that this testimony and evidence are clearly contradictory. If the defense is unable to find fault with the witness's statements, the court must consider them the truth. Think long and hard on that, my learned friend. The situation has clearly changed now. I have to get to the bottom of what really happened here, no matter what it takes. Counsel, you may now cross-examine the witness. Mr. Loon's balloons. As a boss, there's no lie. Every balloon I own in the sky landed safely. All 3 recurring passengers, if the whole ground explosion, what a catastrophe.
Hold it!
Alright, so you couldn't just have forgotten one, maybe? Let's ignore. I might not notice if I was given 100 utensils and one was missing. But we're talking about 3 enormous balloons. Do you believe I can make a mistake on something so grand and explosive? I took the liberty of having Inspector Gregson check this gentleman's warehouse. I have the report here. It clearly says a total of 3 balloons. It appeared that no mistakes had been made then. Surely Mrs. Straw could have been sent for such a menial task. What, me? I'll tell you what I told the boss. Easton kids like me can only count up to 2. Obviously that ain't true, but the boss thought and said he'd have a go himself, that's the case. Ah. All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers. They fell to the ground with a catastrophe. It'd be quite a catastrophe if they fell to the ground for any reason, I think. On that note, Mr. Loon, tell me, what is it that keeps those balloons in the sky exactly? Are you an idiota? That is like asking, why does a candle burn bright? It burns bright because it burns bright. A balloon flies because it flies. What else? That must be Italian for I don't know. There are 2 types of flying balloons, hot air balloons and gas balloons. Hot air balloons work on the principle of hot air being less dense than cold air, whereas gas balloons derive their lift by using a gas that is lighter than air. See, my balloons are filled with the magic gas, I believe. Hydrogen, lighter than air, but highly explosive. Oh, goodness. Do not permit smoking of cigarettes in any of my balloons. The magic gas is not like fire. Even a small spark of static electricity could cause the entire balloon to explode. What's the matter with you? All that comes out of your mouth, explosion. I too. Balloons are perfectly safe. They have to be, or I can't eat. None of my balloons exploded that day, I'm completely sure. If you say that's what happened, you must show me proof. Alright, so Mr. Loon had 3 balloons in the air that day. If none of them were damaged, then what was the one that exploded? You can't get away from the fact that the burned up bit of cloth was found at the scene, can you? I was surprised to find the piece of fabric still at the scene, actually. Didn't you search this area surrounding the stage for clues? Oh, nah. I'm not picking stuff off the ground, me. Always works out way better. Dive into people's pockets instead. So much for the new career path. Mind you, the boss was on his knees picking up all kinds of rubbish from the floor. Thing is, though, the cage went crashed in the Crystal Tower, didn't it? That's where most of the investigation was going on. Even so, I would have thought someone from Scotland Yard would have gathered it up as evidence. Oh, listen here, you stumbled across a bit of balloon and suddenly you're the best investigator in the world. Pardon? Well, you ain't got a badge, have ya? Like this one. I could arrest her with it if I wanted. I wouldn't put it past her. Don't think of it. Let's talk to some scorched on the ground at a meeting we had about the investigation. The cops at the yard reckon there's probably some debris thrown around the explosion of the stage. So there was considerable damage to the stage and surrounding area, wasn't there? Yeah, some of the coves while we're watching the experiment stage were caught in the blast and injured. Good job the old contraption didn't keel over, eh? I hadn't even considered that. It seems there was a great panic after the incident occurred. Nevertheless, the police shouldn't have missed a torn piece of envelope from a balloon. Inspector Gregson can expect repercussions. Like me swipe all his fishing chips, eh? Man's sole pleasure. And all this matters, the scrap balloon envelope means nothing.
Hold it!
So you mean the color's wrong? It's easy. Not have any green balloons in my warehouse. And yet, a piece of green cloth was found at the scene. It's unmistakably from a balloon. Well, I do not know how that came to be. For the sake of argument, let's say that a green balloon did in fact explode above the stage. You couldn't therefore conclude it happened on the day in question. Why not? There would have been recreational balloon flights all over Hyde Park operating before the Great Exposition. exposition. One could have exploded in some earlier date, unfortunate to some sure degree. You believe it may be some earlier balloon accident that predates the exhibition? Gee, exactamente, as Ignore says, it's not from one of my balloons. Clearly, this little one from Bohemia is mistaken about what he saw.
Excuse me.
Excuse me. Is something wrong, Master Gotts? It's Master Willem, Gottsgritch, Sigismund, Ormstein, and Smoog. It was on the tip of my tongue. Ja, something very wrong, I know what I saw. There was a green balloon, I swear it all over Bohemia. You speak as much bad language as you like, but it changes nothing. You do not have evidence, Ragazzo, then I'm must to tell your parents to punish you. Perhaps we'll let the judge decide when it comes to punishments. Evidence? What is this evidence? To give a simple example, young man. A photograph, for instance. Some tangible proof of your claim. Oh, why didn't you say so sooner? I have the photograph here. Oh, good gracious. I had not been up in a balloon for a little while, so I was very excited. I took lots and lots of photographs of the Crystal Tower, of the Bohemian exhibit, of the streets of London, of the hot eel cellar, the balloon. And instantaneous, did you take a picture of that? Ja, one picture. Really, you did take one. But all I wanted was a red balloon. I was not interested in the boring experiments. I see. Well, never mind that. Could you show us the photograph? Of course, and then you will see I'm not lying. I really did see a green balloon. Oh, it's in black and white. Well, I see you're all too shocked to speak. Yes, I think shocked is indeed the word, young man. Ja, perhaps you can see that it was a green balloon from this photograph, but that is not my fault. That is the fault of the stupid person who made the camera. That is one very bohemian-sounding cry. Very well, the court will accept this photograph as evidence. It is not my fault. It is the fault of the person who made the camera. Oh, well, never mind. I'm sure you have plenty of wonderful sepia memories to take home with you. In any case, when exactly did you take that photograph? Well, it was on the day of the big explosion. You don't say. When I pressed the shutter release, there was the very loud bang and a hot wind rushed over my face. That means this photograph was taken a split second before the explosion occurred. Let's take a closer look at it then. And we see this balloon has no stripes, it has no people inside of it. Someone fired, and look, we can see that this was clearly fired from the audience. The explosion may have simply been a distraction. Oh, well, if you ask me, this black and white photograph changes nothing. I could not give the flying pig. Lovely language you picked up. As I thought, Mr. Loon's testimony just doesn't quite add up. The young bohemian boy claims to have seen another fourth balloon, but Mr. Loon vehemently denies the possibility. And now it's hard to imagine the man in charge could be mistaken about the number that were in the air. Still, this inconsistency does tell us something. Oh, it just says zigzag stripes, but there's none here.
Objection!
Oh, come on, how is that not right? All 3 of my balloons were carrying passengers.
Objection!
This one doesn't have any passengers. That's the other thing I noticed, so that might be it. Unfortunately, the photograph Master Gotts took us can't tell us the color of the balloon, but it can tell us something else, something critically important. And what? It shows the pictured balloon wasn't carrying any passengers. Oh my goodness, you're right! But surely all the balloons would have been carrying passengers. There'd be no sense in it otherwise. See, hey there for pleasure, for seeing the view. My balloons only fly with passengers. Which tells us the pictured balloon isn't one of them, so when the incident occurred that day, there was a 4th balloon in the skies above the experimentation stage. A mysterious green balloon. I know nothing. I can only tell you one thing. If this balloon was not carrying passengers, then it was not one of mine.
Objection!
There are illegal tradesmen everywhere you care to look. Clearly, one such entrepreneur decided to capitalize on the opportunity presented by the Great Exposition, and managed to operate balloon flights in Mr. Loomis without his realizing. See that accompanied Vigio and trying to steal my profits. I did not notice because the experiment that went on stage. This 4th balloon exploded at the very same moment Mr. Aspen was supposedly beamed from the stage below. Right, so them scraps fell to the ground then and left after the scorch marks. They didn't come to the stage at all. I saw bits of balloon raining down. Oh, the dog needs to go out. Give me just a moment, please, while I do that. Alright, I'll need to let him back in a few minutes. I also grabbed a drink, so I should be in good shape for the rest of the stream then. Alright. Because no one's in it, it didn't get no attention. A mysterious 4th balloon carrying no passengers, silently floating above the experimentation stage. This photograph shows us nothing more. A stray balloon carrying no one operated by some rogue trader. Clearly has nothing to do with the case. Its relevance does elude me, I must say. The court seen insufficient evidence and ample testimony already. The prosecution calls for this trial to be concluded. Really? Have I really got at the truth yet? No, I can't let this opportunity slip away. The jurors' minds are made up, and not in our favor. What else can this photograph clearly tell us? There's nothing more we can learn from it. There's more.
Objection!
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, wait. Please don't give your decisions yet. This photograph from Master Gotts may well be hiding a more vital clue. What's that? A vital clue?
Objection!
We're past the point of mere possibilities. It's time for definitives now. So tell the court. What exactly does this alleged clue in the photograph prove that caused the explosion? We can reasonably assume that the picture balloon was destroyed in the searing heat of the explosion. Yes, that's right, yes. It was not my fault. Evident. Because the birdcage from the kinesis machine materialized in the sky where it had been flying. And the balloon, being filled with flammable hydrogen, instantly explosively ignited. No, that's not what happened. What? It would appear that this photograph requires closer examination. Counsel for the defense, you will highlight the location of this alleged clue in the photograph for the court. Of course, Lord. If you look closely, it's plain enough to see, really, and what's shown is linked to another piece of evidence we have. In a way, this leads to an unbelievable conclusion.
Take that!
That part. The timing of this photograph can only be described as miraculous. If you look, you'll notice there's a bright white line that appears to be to point directly at the balloon. Most likely a ray of light, which incidentally on the film. I'm afraid I can see nothing of the sort. Well, if you look with a magnifying glass, my lord, it becomes clear what the nature of this bright line really is. Goodness, what is that? Undeniably some flash of light, yes. Oh golly, dude, that'd be lightning. But it couldn't have been a finer day. I believe we may be looking at fire. Bolt of fire heading straight to the balloon, like an arrow. Indeed, even to my aging eyes, it would appear to be a flame of some sort. My word, are you suggesting this flame struck the hydrogen gas-filled balloon? That is absurd. The balloon would have been some 60 feet above the ground at the time. No flame could possibly have reached such a height. Actually, it's my opinion that a particular piece of evidence found at the scene reveals how exactly that did happen. What evidence? If such evidence exists, Counsel, then for goodness sake, present it, man. Which evidence explains this mysterious streak of flame that appears to be headed directly for the balloon?
Take that!
The best weapon to use while drunk. A crossbow. This was found hidden at the foot of a small ornamental tree near the scene. Oh goodness, is that a crossbow? An arrow dipped in oil and set light could easily have been shot from this weapon, sending a flaming arrow straight to the hydrogen-filled balloon. Are you suggesting that a crossbow was used deliberately? Blimey, you're right, that streak of light in the photo looks just like an arrow, don't it? Then, the explosion on the balloon, it was very likely the result of a flaming arrow that fired from this crossbow, igniting the hydrogen gas within it. No! Even Von Zykes was completely at a loss. Order, order, Counsel, this is extraordinary supposition. If the aim was to cause the balloon to explode, the shooter would have used a gun, of course. However, there's an obvious reason why that would have been out of the question. The noise of the discharge, of course. That's right. By using the crossbow, a projectile could be fired at the balloon silently. Well, yeah, if someone shot the gun off an exposition ground, that would have caused a real panic. But with the big explosion, there's a very big panic anyway, no? I don't like this. I should be pleased to have found a plausible new explanation about this, but feels wrong. Do you understand the implications of what you're saying, my Japanese friend? If a flaming arrow did indeed hit the balloon, then obviously it would have exploded. And if the birdcage appeared from the cloud of smoke that ensued... Oh, wait a minute, what are you really saying here? I don't get it, was the birdcage beamed up to that sky after all? Or what? What, goodness me. Now I understand. That's why I have the sinking feeling this is about. I think there's a good chance the birdcage was actually concealed inside the balloon all along. What? Did you hear correctly, Counsel? There's no going back now. The horse is bolted. Ooh, the dog needs back in. Give me just one moment, please, while I let them back. Alright, there we are. Alright, the doggy should be fine for the rest of the night, so we should be able to continue smoothly. Alright, let's assume, as I said, the birdcage was hidden inside the green balloon from the very start. On stage, when the experiment was started, the birdcage and the instantaneous kinesis machine disappeared in a cloud of smoke. And at that moment, the flaming arrow was fired from the ground, causing the green balloon to explode and drawing the attention of the spectators to the sky above their heads, rather than at the bottom where the gun would have been fired if they used a gun. And from amid the smoke, a hidden birdcage appeared to fall down and crash to the crystal tower. Yeah, I can see why he's having the sinking feeling about this, because this does make the obvious argument, well, the professor clearly knew his machine didn't actually work, and so this was a way to secure funding. However, that can't be the case, because the shot was fired from the ground and not the stage. I think you'll all agree it's entirely plausible that what I've just described is the real truth behind this miraculous experiment carried out today. Good grief!
Objection!
This is ludicrous. What you have described is no science experiment. It's child's play, a contemptible display of stage magic. Both Sholmes and Iris said the experiment was a scientific impossibility, in which case it's the only way to explain what happened that day. And in any case, the victim's body was found inside the birdcage of the Crystal Tower. If the instantaneous kinesis didn't take place, how do you explain that? If I put in a word as a man of magic myself, such apparent discrepancies can easily be explained by some simple deception. Juror number 3? All that would be needed is a doppelganger, someone who looked very similar to the victim, Mr. Asman. And having this other man appear on stage to front the show as a body double. Of course. So in fact, Mr. Asman must have been inside the birdcage, was concealed inside the balloon right from the start. That balloon would have been filled with hydrogen. Anything hidden inside it would have been scattered to the four winds and exploded. No one would ever have embarked on such a risky venture. Not necessarily. The explosive force of balloon gas would very much depend on the mixture ratio. Juror number 4. Flying balloons are rarely filled with pure hydrogen, but a mixture of other gases such as helium as well. Helium on its own does not explode, but by controlling the gas mixture ratio, the explosive force can be altered. The mixture ratio? Obviously, the victim's body would have suffered some burns, that would be unavoidable. But not to such an extent to render the whole little charade impossible. So everything that happened can be explained, logically and scientifically. The explosion that engulfed the stage at the start of the experiment was no accident. It was all part of an elaborate deception, to make it appear as though the instantaneous kinesis had occurred. Oh, goodness me. And if we accept that this is what happened, it means the victim, Mr. Asman, was never present on the public experimentation stage to begin with. So in short, he couldn't have been killed by the defendant, who was always on stage in full view the entire time. This will be very hard for the prosecution to counter. Lord Van Zykes can't credibly maintain that Professor Harebrain has a suspect now. Yeah, Harebrain doesn't want his... Mr. Naruhodo, I appreciate your efforts. Thank you. Professor? But you can stop now. Just keep your mouth shut, please. I'm sorry? What is all this about, Mr. Harebrain? I, Albert Harebrain, hereby confess that it was me who stabbed Mr. Odie Osman. Yes, it was me, with my faithful friend and partner, Andrew the Screwdriver. What are you doing? Order, order! Defendant, explain the sudden confession. Professor Harebrain, what are you talking about? It's what I've said all along. I must protect my hypothesis and my precious machine. He's down there and claiming it was all a trick, an elaborate prank, but where's your proof? No, you'd have to examine the machine if you wanted to prove it, but then it would all be over. My beautiful hypothesis would be laid bare. I mean, the indignity of it. It's clear you drew the plans for the experiment, but you didn't actually build it. It's quite conceivable you were duped, Professor. If you'll let me, I can prove it. Barak. Yes. I'll cooperate and do whatever you say, I swear it. So please, ensure the Special Disposition for Scientific Equipment Act is adhered to and protect my creation. Pray forgive the discourtesy of filling my hallowed chalice at this critical juncture. Is to my learned Japanese friend. What? And his upcoming attempt to clarify the defense's position in the light of the accused's confession. Do you intend to formally assert that the experiment was nothing more than a conjuring trick? Because the moment you do, the Special Disposition for Scientific Equipment Act that protects a professor's invention will cease to apply. The prosecution will demand a rigorous examination of the machinery involved in order to establish the truth. However, if you acknowledge that the machine is genuine and instrumental in the victim's murder, any chance of investigating will be crushed, and the confidentiality of the professor's hypothesis preserved. Well, counsel, what's the defense's official position on the matter? What Professor Harebrain, my client, actually asked of me was to prove that the explosion on this stage was an accident and protect the secrecy of hypothesis. But there's no way to do that without implying the professor's guilt. Do I protect my client's life by asserting his innocence? Or do I uphold his request by see him condemned? Either way, I can't avoid betraying his trust. You've been silent long enough. Isn't talking your trade, my learned friend? Or has all knowledge of English escaped your confused mind? Japanese mind. Mr. Naruhodo, please. There's no escape here. I have to make a choice. What's an impossible one? I have to give up on something, but what? The defense asserts the defense instantaneous kinesis machine was in fact... The corpse was in there in time, and I have the feeling that so we had a doppelganger before, but his body still is completely still here, as we can see. It could be the mannequin that was stolen, because they usually don't have multiple things happen in a single chapter if they aren't as important to be connected. There's the professor, supposedly Mr. Asman. Technically speaking, I'm leaning a bit more towards doing our job as defense attorney, but I will admit this is actually one of the more meaningful choices. I don't think it, well, kind of. I don't think it actually matters. He wants to go down in history with his machine, even at the cost of going down for murder, which of course means he knows what's going to happen. He would consider science more important than his own life, since that's his life's work after all, but at the same time, we have a job to do. We have to find the truth here. We have to keep him... we have to defend him like we promised. These games are linear, so it shouldn't really matter what I say, but I guess we'll find out very shortly. We'll do our job. Ah. No, I can't say it. My client places faith in me. I can't let him down like that. What must I give up on is not the question you have to ask yourself here. It's what can I protect? Hello again, Mr. Naruhodo. Been far too long. Zato? Oh, what are you? Hiya! Ah, my first Suzato takedown in 6 months. There'll be time to talk later, Mr. Naruhodo. For now, we must concentrate on the task at hand, which is working out not like I have to give up on, but what I can protect. Professor Harebrain. Yes. Yesterday you told me that science is the pursuit of the truth. Well, my job is to pursue the truth as well. Yes, of course. And personally, I believe that you didn't stab Mr. Asman. I think you've come to realize something yourself too, haven't you? That your experiment and the machine you built with the victim are questionable. The truth behind that is what we must both pursue. Oh, huh? Ow, my face! So, you finally opened your eyes. What? As for you, Albert, you can't ignore this any longer. Huh? Having heard my learned friend's assertion, don't you have something to say? Barak? Lord Van Zykes. Gosh, I've never heard him speak that way before. In truth, there is one thing, something I've remembered that's of relevance. What is that? On the day it happened, just before I began the experiment, I saw a man near the stage. A man holding that very crossbow. I beg your pardon? Professor, the man have any distinguishing features? What do you look like? Taller than me. Thinner than me. With straight hair, straighter and whiter than mine. Let me see, one less lens than me, a monocle. Rather stylish black monocle. One thing in particular will help positively identify the man. You see, I know him very well. After all, he's the engineer who built my invention. What? We did hear about this engineer at several points, and we had no idea who he is before now. He built the machine. I knew he'd come up sooner or later. That's right, Mr. Asman introduced him to me a year ago. He's a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. Enoch Drebber? Does this name mean something? Members of the jury seem flustered. Not a name any scientist wishes to hear. That man's an abomination. Not a name any conjurer wishes to hear either. Who on earth is he? I'm afraid this is the first tale of his nature that I've heard in scientific circles in connection with that name. There's talk of other flamboyant experiments that turn out to be nothing but staged trickery in the end. Obviously, the rascal's after the government's research grant money. When magicians are in need of money, I've heard of them resorting to these underhanded tactics. Some acquaintances of mine with experience of such things have mentioned Enoch Drebber's names before. The man is both an engineer and a magician. Yes, we're dealing with an unparalleled confidence trickster here. That's Enoch Drebber for you. So it's true then. My invention, my great machine, it was just a grand illusion? Considering what we've just heard about Mr. Drebber's character, I'm sorry to say that sounds increasingly likely. Even though no one else believed it, I wanted to. I wanted to believe that my machine would function exactly as my hypothesis predicted. Which is why he was so opposed to it being investigated, I presume. I knew that if the machine was examined in detail, its construction would give away my hypothesis. Obviously, I didn't want that to happen, but at the same time, I knew that if it was found to be nothing more than a trick, a work of deception, then everything I'd worked towards, all my research, all my dreams, my whole life would be over. I was terrified of the prospect. So you really had no idea then, did you, about the true nature of the machine that was built, and the true nature of Mr. Drebber? I never questioned anything. I didn't want to question it. It's entirely possible that Mr. Asman and Mr. Drebber were working together to use you as a means of fraudulently acquiring the research grant money. When I announced my invention to the crowds that day, it was the finest moment of my career. I pulled all the levers, turned all the dials in exactly the way Drebber had described. When the smoke suddenly started billowing out, I panicked. I didn't know what was happening. We also have at least now we also have a clear idea of who might be responsible for Mr. Asman's murder, at least. Oh, but I really didn't know how the whole illusion was made to work. I don't know anything anymore. Let me confirm one final point with you, Professor. Do you now consent to the prosecution submitting the necessary paperwork to release your invention from the protection afforded by the Special Disposition for Scientific Equipment Act? Yes, please go ahead. I'm very sorry. It appears we shall have to suspend the proceedings for the remainder of the day now. Lord Van Zykes? My lord. The court has newly been made aware of another party whose involvement in this matter is critical. Yes, Mr. Drebber. Gather information about the man, if possible. I should like him served with a subpoena. With pleasure, my lord. Now, counsel for the defense. Yes, my lord. When we reconvene, I shall be looking for one thing and one thing alone from you. Evidence the defendant is innocent of the crime for which he presently stands accused. I understand. Good. In that case, this court is adjourned until tomorrow morning. As I expected, the choice doesn't really matter since these aren't really very open decision games, but I do think that the story took a pretty good direction. The defendant's antechamber. Yeah, I knew this was going to be second day of investigation. Mr. Naruhodo. Yes? I'm so sorry. I was wrong, you were right, I tricked you. You trusted me, I dragged you up into my mess. Oh, how did it ever come to this? I'm so sorry. Did you really have no idea, Professor, about what Mr. Drebber was really up to, I mean? About what he was really constructing? No. That machine was the bottom of my hypothesis, all my hopes and dreams. Naturally. Oh, yeah. I had complete faith in it. Alright, well, in that case, I won't say any more. Sadly, the murder accusation against you does still stand, so we must do as much investigation as we can before the trial resumes tomorrow. Well, thank you for doing so much for me. I'm sorry for arriving late this morning, Mr. Naruhodo. Arriving late? Oh, did you see my postcard? I wanted to let you know when I'd arrive. A postcard? What postcard? I hid it from you, Runo, so it would be a surprise. Well, did it work? I'm surprised, alright, especially when she threw me to the ground. Oh dear, I'm so sorry. I was just so happy to see you again that, it sort of slipped out. Maybe we could stick to more traditional displays of emotion in the future. Susie's train was late to London Victoria this morning, you see. But we made the coachman really whip the horses so she wouldn't miss the whole trial. Oh, poor horsies. I was watching the gallery for a while, but in the end, I'm afraid I couldn't contain myself. Well, I'm glad you didn't. Having you on my side in court gives me the strength I needed to win. So I'm, delighted to see you back in London. Oh, you're too kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm delighted to be here, too. I hope I can continue to be of service to you. Of course. So what's brought you back? Did Professor Mikutaba not protest? Let's save all that conversation for we're back at home, shall we? You know, I've made one of my most special blends ever for the special occasion. Oh, Iris, how wonderful. I can't wait. Suzato was back in London. It's hard to describe how happy that made me feel at the time, but despite my elation, our tale was about to take yet another extraordinary turn. To be continued. October 23rd, 2:41 p.m. Naruhodo's Legal Consultancy. Oh, this room, it's been too long. It hasn't changed the slightest, though. And it's been some 6 months, hasn't it? It's a long time for things to stay so, familiar. I didn't know when you might return. I wanted everything to be as you'd left it. But it's also been some 6 months, it's true. So is your father alright, Susie? What happened? My father? Yeah, Professor Mikutaba. I mean, it was half a year ago, but that's why he went back to Japan. Because of the telegram he received saying he'd fallen ill with a very high fever for some unknown reason. That's real. Hey, so I was surprised to learn you'd be coming back so soon. Surprised but happy. I think I wrote about in my letter to you that it was all a trick. My father's in fine health, and I'm obviously very relieved about that. Well, we're all delighted to have you back. It was quite by accident that I'm able to return to Europe, actually. Because a very grand conference called the International Forensic Science Symposium. That's the same symposium Lord Strongheart mentioned. Anyway, I've arrived safe and sound, and all that matters is that I'm here now. After all, I haven't yet fulfilled my promise to you, Iris. Oh. You must tell us everything that happened while you were back in Japan. Yes, of course, I shall. And, there's one other thing. Something you wrote in your letter that particularly grabbed my attention. About you-know-who. Kazuma. I know. I'll tell you all that I can. First of all, the Forensic Science Symposium. Lord Strongheart mentioned something about the symposium as well. I think he said the investigative authorities from 40 different countries would attend. Yes, and from Japan, my father and Judge Jigoku have been invited. It's something of an honor, I believe. Well, Professor Mikutaba is the leading expert in forensic medicine in our country, after all, but who's the other person you mentioned? A judge, you say? Yes, his excellently, Judge Seshiro Jigoku. You've met him, Mr. Naruhodo, last year in the Supreme Court. Can't possibly have forgotten. That terrible trial of yours when you were accused of murder. Ah, yes, I try to think of that as a positive turning point in my life these days. Well, it was Judge Jigoku who presided over the trial. Well, if I'm perfectly honest, I'd be happy never to see that man's face again in my life. Oh, well, anyway, as father was invited to the symposium, he agreed to me returning to Britain as well. He won't actually arrive until next month, but, well, I couldn't wait. So I pleaded with him, and in the end he agreed on giving me the go-ahead. Yeah, about the symposium. It seems as though Lord Strongheart was putting in an awful lot of work to make it happen. It's obviously very important. I believe it is, yes. As I understand it, Lord Strongheart organized the entire event himself. I think he's hoping that by achieving exceptional results, he'll get the job of Attorney General, the most senior position in the British justice system. He's hoping to use his power to create the world's finest policing institution. That's what Father said, anyway. Apparently it's Lord Strongheart's lifelong ambition. Does Professor Mikutaba know Lord Strongheart personally, then, I wonder? Actually, Lord Strongheart did give me a long speech about this very subject only yesterday, but I sort of lost the will to live early on and didn't listen to much of it. How trying for you. Giselle Brett. Giselle Brett, the woman whose unforgivable actions ended in me being wrongly accused of a crime I didn't commit. The murder of Dr. John H. Wilson. Yes, Giselle Brett. Yes, Giselle Brett. That's a name I won't forget as long as I live. The extraordinary thing is, though, it seems it's a name we should all forget. I'm sorry. Since the incident, our government's intelligence services have been investigating Miss Brett. It turns out that an Englishwoman by the name of Giselle Brett didn't actually exist. But how can that be? It was a pseudonym. Her real name was Shin, and she wasn't a visiting student either. That was all a front. A front? Who on earth was she then? Miss A. Shin. Her name is literally all our intelligence service have been able to ascertain about her. Nobody's why or even how she came to be in Japan. It's a complete mystery. But that makes no sense. It's no easy task to be accepted as a foreign student anywhere. What could that woman have been up to? I'm afraid I really don't know. The only thing we can be sure of is that she had some business in our country we don't yet understand. And now she's been killed, while all the questions surrounding her existence remain unanswered. I'm afraid so. A. Shin. Who on earth was she? And why do I feel as though I've heard that name before somewhere? Back in Britain. When I first arrived back in Japan, I really thought I'd never be allowed to return to Britain. But curiously, after the awful trial of the Supreme Court, Father's mood changed entirely. That awful trial? Oh yes, for the murder of Giselle Brett. Ooh, you dressed as a man then, didn't you, Susie? Oh, well, yes. Since women are forbidden in the courtroom, I had no choice. Wow, amazing. I wish I'd seen it. Don't you, Runo? Yes, I suppose so. I want to play at being a lawyer now. I could wear a false mustache, maybe. I don't think any mustache could possibly hide the fact you're 10 years old, Iris. There's something else I've been wanting to ask you, Miss Susato. It's about the real reason why Professor Mikutaba summoned you back to Japan. You said in your letter there was something to do with that convict's loot we found in Mr. Natsume's lodgings. That's right. The very large dog collar we found with the bee embroiled on it. It seems Mr. Natsume included a drawing of the collar in the report he submitted this his time in Britain. I understand when Father saw the report, he turned as white as a sheet. Why would he be, then? Father came to Britain himself, of course, to study. It was some time ago now, but he stayed for 6 years. I can only imagine something must have happened during that time. But if he refuses to tell me what it was, then I intend to find the answers myself. And I've decided that I, for one, won't keep any more secrets. Oh, Susie. It's a very meaningful look Susato's giving Iris there. gonna grab a drink real quick. My throat's getting kind of dry. Once again, nothing fancy tonight, just old-fashioned water. Alright, what about Cosma? After my friend Ray's trial, the reporter who actually killed Miss Brett said something very strange. I know the truth. I know you had a hand in what went on in that visiting student's fate. Nobody here in Japan knows anything about it. They don't know anything. They don't know the guy never made it to England. They died on the steamship, and that he'll never... Obviously, I couldn't ask him to elaborate at that time. But later, I visited the man in his prison cell and asked him what he was going to say about Kazuma-sama, and what you learn. After he died on the voyage to Great Britain, his body should have been unlaid into the port of Hong Kong and passed into the care of the consultant staff there. Should have been. Well, it turns out his body never arrived. It just disappeared. What? Kazuma's body vanished? Our government tried to cover that fact up, it seems. They erected a grave on the cliffs by the hometown, except Kazuma-sama isn't in there. Did Professor Mikotaba know about this? Yes, it would seem that he did. But he didn't tell me. I'm still investigating what happened to Kazuma-sama's body as we speak. I just don't believe it. And what is this acute feeling of apprehension I have all of a sudden? Oh no, does that mean the Reaper's apprentice is actually a resurrected Cosma? No, it can't be him resurrected. It's entirely possible. I mean, the second case of the first game never actually went to trial. There was never technically an autopsy report run. It's entirely possible he was still alive the whole time and has been hiding out. Oh dang, this is gonna be a very sad reunion if it turns out he's the prosecutor. I have to face the final trial instead of Von Zykes. The Kazuma Mystery. Think about it now, some of the things that happened on the SS Borea were definitely strange. I mean, after he died, we never saw his body again, did we? Could it be? Could it be that he's actually still alive? Stop it, Mr. Naruhodo, it's too much to bear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Just thinking about the possibility pains me so very much. Cast your mind back for a moment, Mr. Naruhodo. When Kazuma-san was discovered, Mr. Sholmes was there, wasn't he? And he definitely examined the body. I remember it clearly. Ah, you're right. So if Kazuma hadn't actually been dead at all, it would mean Mr. Sholmes had lied to us. There's no reason why he'd possibly have done such a thing. I suppose that's true, yes. The idea that he might still be alive somewhere. It wants to fill me with hope, but I can't let it, because if it turns out not to be true, then I'd be back at the bottom of that awful pit of despair again. I'm terrified of what that might do to me. Oh, Miss Susato. I know she's given the idea the thought it deserves. It's Susato-san we're talking about after all, so I probably shouldn't push it now. Thinking back, that spade's been here since we first moved in, hasn't it? I'm sure I've told you before, Mr. Naruhodo, that's not a spade, that's a shovel. No, shovels are for digging, that's for scooping up loose material, it's a spade. No, spades are for digging, that's for scooping up loose material, it's a shovel. The Great Spade-Shovel War rages on. Nothing particular of note. Does she have something to say about Reaper attacked? Oh, about this paper, Miss Susato. Yes, it's all about the Great Exhibition. I've been dreaming about it, you know. I was sorry you're gonna miss it when you were called back to Japan. So was I. I felt desperately unlucky. But here I am, back in London while it's underway. It's a dream come true. Perhaps you're not as unlucky as you thought, then. Once we've helped Professor Harebrain out of this terrible situation, we shall explore it together. And of course, we must invite the Professor's good friend, Lord Van Zykes, as well. Your luck might not stretch that far. Mrs. Otto, do you see this? You have such a great expectation in your eyes, Mr. Naruhodo, but I'm afraid nothing of particularly useful comes to mind at all. Oh, sorry. I'm not sure what I was expecting, really. You're still taking good care of that armband, I see. I'm so pleased. Well, yes, I feel like it wouldn't be me without it now, to be honest. Oh dear, there seems to be a thread coming loose just there. Look. I'd be only too happy to mend it for you, Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, thank you. I must have scraped against something again. I'm always doing that. Then take better care of it, please. It was all going so well until I ruined it. Do you have anything to say about the crossbow? This was used to shoot down the balloon, wasn't it? Yeah, with a flaming arrow. It's quite a formidable weapon. I'm quite accomplished with the longbow myself, you know. No, really? If you were to bounce an apple on your head, Mr. Naruhodo, I'm quite confident I could hit it from a good 50 meters away. Quite confident, you say? Does that apple necessarily have to be on my head? I guess I need to show her this until something happens. I can't even move, yeah, so I'm gonna have to painstakingly go for this. Well, it's not a big deal. It's not like I get penalized for it. Yep, nothing here. Oh, I bet I have to look at Iris to talk to her or something. Yeah, precisely. Must be about a year ago now. I wrote a really long story based on some of my father's old notes. It's about one of Hurley's greatest exploits. I called it The Hound of the Baskervilles. But then Mr. Sholmes forbade you from publishing it, put the manuscript somewhere and nobody could get their hands on it. Nobody knows anything about from Hurley and I. For some reason, you knew the title of it, didn't you, Susie? Oh, it sounds exciting. Hound of the Baskervilles. I should love to read it. And you wouldn't tell me how you'd come to know it. Yes, but I made you promise that I'd explain one day, didn't I? I think it's time. Oh. It's probably not anything special, just might have just broken open the chest and taken a look. I'm really sorry I've had to keep it from you for so long, Iris. It was completely by accident I came to know the title of your manuscript, Iris. In a short while before we left Japan, I was cleaning Father's study, and I saw something on his writing desk, a large box of papers. There was a label affixed to the boxes written in English. It read, Hound of the Baskervilles. Wait, what? My Baskerville story? Of course, I had no idea what it was at the time. Father came in and... Suzato, what are you doing? Oh, Father. Did you look at those papers? No, I simply read the label, that's all. Well, put it out of your mind. I'm sorry? Forget you ever saw it, and certainly don't tell anybody else about this. You understand? I suppose I should have known it wouldn't be so easy. Oh, but what was Iris's manuscript doing in Japan? I have no idea. When I heard Iris mention the word Baskerville that day, the title slipped out. I would never have guessed that it was an unpublished account of one of Mr. Sholmes' exploits. So in other words, he had to send it to Japan to get approval before he could get it published. Why would he need that? When I returned to Japan, I asked Father to explain, but he refused to answer any of my questions. There was no sign of that big box in his office either. That's really all I know about it. I've no doubt Father has a very good reason for being so secretive about it, but still. I've made up my mind to explain myself to both of you. Well, thank you for being so honest, Susie. Interesting. So more and more. This almost implies it's no accident that we met Mr. Sholmes. So, Miss Naruhodo, I'm ready to start investigating if you are. I've committed every detail about the case to memory. And Iris has told me about the disturbing happenings at Waxwork Museum as well. Alright, so you're fully abreast of the situation already. I'd expect nothing less, to be honest. I would think our first port of call should be investigate this Mr. Drebber, the engineer responsible for building the elaborate machine that was used to perfect this extraordinary trick. Yeah, a conjurer of sorts by the end of it, by the sound of it, well known in the fields of science and magic. Well, then we need to go and arrest him. Well, yeah, he must know the truth behind this case, so I agree, we really do need to find the man. Sounds like it's a case of tracking someone down. Here's a job for the police. Our great detective. Are we supposed to guess who she might be thinking of? We don't have much time, so we need to get started straight away, I think. Good idea. Well, best of luck then. Oh, you're not coming today? I'm going to Brixton Road shortly for the herb market. Let me know later how you got on, won't you? That was a little abrupt. The pull of the herb market must be very strong. Yeah, first of all, let's see if anyone's here. Nope, but there's a teapot brewing. I do like this fireplace. It's one of the best things I've seen since we arrived in the country, in fact. Although, I do yearn for a Japanese kotatsu. Putting your legs under a warm, blanketed table is so comforting. Do be careful, Mr. Naruhodo. Don't mistakenly put your feet in the fire, will you? You'd suffer terrible burns, you know. I worry sometimes about how Shizato sees me. This blackboard is where Iris scribbled down her latest ideas, isn't it? Let's see. She seems to have drawn a lot of little stick figures all lined up. Look. Cheap apples at the market is what all of them say. Oh, the little figures can speak. All your questions would be answered if only you'd read this month's Rand's magazine. So I'm the only one who can't make any sense of this. Okay, we need to speak with him. Oh, he's doing his equations even now. What's, he doing? Oh my! The whole wall of the cell is covered in mathematical equations! And he's still writing more now. So, Professor, sorry to interrupt. Oh, Mr. Naruhodo. And who is this young lady? My name is Suzato Mikotaba. I'm Mr. Naruhodo's judicial assistant. It's a pleasure to meet you, Professor. Oh, if only I had met a refined young woman like you sooner. None of this would have happened. No, that's not logical. That makes no sense at all. Oh dear, I'm sorry if my presence here upsets you. I do owe you an apology too, Professor. I didn't manage to deliver what I promised you I would in the court this morning. Oh, no. The whole thing, the whole miserable affair, it all happened because I've been such a complete and utter clod. Professor Hairbrain, what have you been working on your cell? Oh, you mean that? Oh dear, how embarrassing. I was suddenly struck by an idea, and I simply had to write it down. The wall is all I had on hand. Is this some new hypothesis? Something surpass the super high voltage instantaneous kinesis, maybe? No, actually, this, is my autobiography. Or autobiography. Oh, Still and Fiddled by Albert Hairbrain. I found I can represent my odds fortunes with only odd numbers and an ambitious set of simultaneous equations. Really? I'm going to have to pay back all the loans I took for the kinesis machine, you see. There's going to be a new serial publication for the next month. Part 1, not birth and not upgrade. Well, you can't beat the man's optimism, that's for sure. I see. Well, for now, would you mind if we talked a little more about the case? Oh, yes, of course. I've been working through the numbers. I was still fiddled by the pair of them. By Asmund, by that aloof engineer Drebber. We're not going to have to sit through an explanation on all these equations, are we? Well, first things first, let's start with the morning's trial. Everything I've believed in has been turned on its head. My research, Mr. Asmund, the kinesis machine, my hypothesis even. I'm so sorry it's come to this. There really was no other way. No, it's not your fault. I wanted to protect my work, but in the end there was nothing worth protecting. It was never my intention to deceive anyone. I didn't want to deceive the public. No, of course you didn't. But in court this morning, I realized something. You've done something wrong without knowing it. You've still done something wrong. Logically, it makes no difference if you're aware of it or not. Ignorance is the poor man's excuse. The blame still lies with me. Professor. He believed in me this morning, you know. Barak did. He believed my hypothesis. Well, I think that was just a necessary factor in the prosecution establishing its case. No, Barak wouldn't do something like that. I'm sure he would genuinely believed it. Did he? Maybe he did. I think I understand now why it was that you decided to take the prosecution in my trial, I mean. His motivations. After the terrible accident happened, nobody would believe my hypothesis anymore. Not the police, not the prosecution service, not the lawyers even. I feel like I dealt some kind of finishing blow there. So if any other prosecutor had taken the case, if it was anyone other than Barak, I'm sure the prosecution wouldn't have declared my hypothesis a complete utter nonsense. In that case, you would have been declared a fraud yourself, Professor. Exactly, which would have been a fate worse than death for me. But Barak insisted I was a proper man of science from start to finish. You think that's why he... I know him very well indeed. He's an extremely kind-hearted soul. But that extremely kind-hearted soul spent all morning trying to paint you as a murderer, didn't he? Well, admittedly, that part of the analysis appears to have some flaws in it. And what about the whole Reaper side of things? How's that fit in with the whole kind-hearted soul idea? Well, to be fair, that seems to be something that even Von Zykes himself can't control. Alright, let's first ask about Mr. Asman. Do you think he set out to trick me from the very start? Not trip. I'm sorry to say, but that does seem likely, yes. When I first met him, he introduced himself as a wealthy financier. He looked over the paper I'd written and said my work would benefit all humanity and must be pursued. He was so enthused, he was so empathetic. But in reality, he was the mastermind of some vast criminal network, it seems. I still can't believe it. As the machine was essentially a set decoration for some stage magic. It probably didn't require a large amount of investment, actually. For the scale of it, it wasn't just some small trick. Yeah, it was a very elaborate feat of deception. All young scientists are full of hope about their burgeoning ideas, full of zeal. But none of us have any money. We want to do research, but we can't afford it. Many of us take on largely, barely legal part-time work and try and earn just a few measly pennies to carry on. To go through all that, only be taken for a complete fool. It's too rotten to believe. It is, I agree. It's why we have to find those responsible and bring them to justice. Mr. Asman is no more, of course, which leaves only the engineer. Mr. Enoch Trick. Drebber the engineer. Is he an engineer, magician, or a swindler? It was about a year ago when Mr. Asman first brought Drebber to me in my laboratory. Since then, I've met him many times to discuss details about my kinesis machine. But at no point did you have any inkling he was just any illusionist? Oh, he definitely wasn't just an illusionist. What do you mean? He was a wealth of deep scientific knowledge. There's no question the man is a genuine scientist. That it's instantly apparent in conversation. I see, so at least he wasn't lying about his engineering knowledge. But the wretched man deceived you, Professor. It's unforgivable. We must do everything you can to find him and bring him to justice. Are there no more clues you can give us as to whereabouts? I'm sorry, we only ever discussed the kinesis machine, nothing else. Although, just once, I did visit his workshop. What workshop? Drebber's enormous fabrication laboratory, where he constructed my great machine. Why didn't you mention this before? So his workshop. There's every chance we might find the man there. So you've been to Drebber's place of work, then? Yes, just once, you understand. It was an enormous place, plenty of room to construct my kinesis machine, you see. Where can we find it? We have to go there at once. There's a good chance we might even find Drebber there. Well, yes, definitely. I'm sure, as in, I'm sure you're not going to want to hear this. But I have absolutely no idea where the workshop is at all. I'm so sorry. I was more than half expecting that. You see, I was blindfolded in the carriage the entire way there. He blindfolded you, he wasn't taking any chances then. The place was incredible, the pinnacle of modern engineering. Even the oil he used is the very best, a special French machine oil it's impossible to obtain in Britain. Ah, the indescribable scent of that imported oil. Perfumers across the world would forget their secret formula and use that instead. What do you think, Miss Susato? Eru machine for your next birthday? I've never used any kind of perfume, Mr. Naruhodo. I'm not sure I'd like to start with that one. I don't suppose you know even part of the workshop's address, Professor? You don't have a business card for Mr. Drebber, for example? The man is clearly very cautious, Miss Susato. You wouldn't... Ah, yes I do actually. He gave me a business card once. It's right here. Let me see that. Throw etiquette to the wind, why don't you? Enoch Drebber, engineer. I'm afraid that's all it says. There's no address. No. Oh well, can't say I'm surprised. Still, this could be useful. Well, we do have an important piece of evidence now. A stain. This dark smudge here. I think perhaps it's machine oil. Possibly. Professor Harebrain mentioned something about the oil Mr. Drebber uses, doesn't he? He said it was specially imported, very high-quality oil it's impossible to obtain in Britain. Yeah, that's right, but more importantly, it's more fragrant than the finest perfume. So excuse me a moment. Oh, it doesn't appear to have any scent at all. Don't worry, I expect that's just because there's such a tiny amount here. Actually, we should probably present him the business card, see what he has to say about it. Professor Harebrain, what do you make of this? Oh, yes, this is what I need to prove my hypothesis, isn't it? No, it's nothing to do with your hypothesis, actually. Then take it away, I don't want to be bothered with anything that doesn't assist my science. Alright, keep your abundant hair on. Alright, let's go examine the stage now that we're allowed to look at it. 23rd of October, the Great Exhibition Grounds. Foot of the Crystal Tower. Hello, Kyo. I had no idea there were so many people in the world. I know what you mean. I really packed here today. Things been. Fine. No. I managed to... I believe I'm on the third case of the second game here, so... We managed to buy a bit of extra time in the trial, so now we're in the day 2 of the investigation. So now I can finally start looking at what exactly is going on here. Yeah, it's really packed here today. Feels as though it's taken us 2 hours just to make our way through the crowds at this point. Has it? I shut my brain down so I didn't really notice, to be honest. Oh gosh, I do wish I had your absence of mind sometimes, Mr. Naruhodo. There you are. I had a feeling your lot would show your mugs for long. Oh no, that wasn't her, that was... Oh, Inspector Gregson, I see you're hard at work as usual. Warm greetings to you. I do hope you've been keeping well since we last met. Oh, what's all the ceremony? We just saw each other in court this morning. Not you, Sunshine, the gentlewoman so loyally at your side. Oh. Why, thank you, Inspector. How good of you to notice. He might be a bit rough around the edges, but he's still a proper English gentleman at heart, I suppose. As you probably guessed, we're hoping to investigate the scene some more. Right, well, that's the young trainee's domain. Oi, get over here, Jaina. She seems to be busy playing with a puppy, probably giving a traditional East End training. Gina? She's a police officer now. Amazing, isn't it? She's a good kid, actually. Heart's in the right place, anyway. She's got the detection bug, if you ask me. Yep, I think she'll follow my footsteps nicely. What do you mean? I'm being transferred. It's time for me to say toodaloo to London. Really? That's a bit sudden, isn't it? I had no idea. Where are you going to be posted, then? We'll come see how you're getting along. Not likely, but you're welcome to try. If you don't mind a trip to France, that is. To France? I'll be working the Paris Police Prefecture. Should be right up my alley. Oh, but France, that's an entirely different country. I don't understand. Why would you be sent there? That's the way the adult world works, sunshine. I don't go poking your nose where it's not wanted. I'm intending to take the kid with me when I go. Oh, what? You're taking Gina to Paris? Well, I can't leave her in London. Who knows what become of her? I suppose he's worried she'd slip back into slipping her hands in people's pockets and purses. I don't think he's worried about her pickpocketing, Mr. Naruhodo. I think he's worried about the Reaper. Oh, of course. So that's been playing on Gregson's mind too, isn't it? Anyway, I haven't mentioned any of this to Gina, so don't go blabbing, you hear me? No, of course not. Gotta keep that diving diva safe and sound. Till all this is over, at least. Boy, you just called me a bloomin' diving diva again? Oh, so you heard that, did ya? Right, well, any questions about the scene, you can put them to my capable detective diva here. Alright, you heard the boss. Inspector Lestrade's in charge here now. I suppose I'd better keep my word and not mention anything about Paris. So Gina, you've got a new dog, have you? Adorable. Isn't it great? Toby's his name. Oh, how delightful. He's absolutely adorable. Yeah, the dog does seem lovely, but it's a not so lovely Inspector Gregson's playing on my mind, to be honest. Let's ask about Toby the dog first. Where'd you find the little mutt then, Gina? Oh, hi, don't be so rude, Odo. Slight overreaction, don't you think? Ain't no more. Toby's, how'd they put it? Oh yeah, bona fide detective. I'm sorry. I'm giving Roberts on everything. Chief Inspector Toby to you. More senior than Inspector Gregson, is he? Ooh, so he's a police dog, is he? The police recruit dogs now? I've heard they're already being used officially in Germany as part of their city policing. They're used for chasing criminals and such. They have a wonderful sense of smell, after all. I have a fairly good sense of smell myself, as it happens. I can tell undergarments have been freshly laundered from undergarments that haven't. That's nothing compared with this little fella, Odo. Oh, really? According to what the boss said, once Toby here's got a good whiff of your drawers, he should chase that scent to the other side of the world. To the other side of the world? You mean he can swim? Mr. Naruhodo, I think you may have missed the point. By a rather wide margin. I just can't believe this little dog has such an incredible skill. I'm telling you, Odo, there's gonna be more and more dogs doing their bit for the police in the future. Yes, I agree. Right, one of these days they'll be barking orders at us, not the other way around. Oh, literally barking. Oh dear. Sorry, Gina, I don't think I agree with your vision quite that much. What do you think about that? Toby is Britain's first police dog. Found him on the East End the other day. Someone just chucked him on the street. Oh, poor puppy. There you go. I knew she'd lifted him from somewhere. Oh, Gina, you're such a kind-hearted soul, aren't you? To children and animals. Today's trial. It was great, Warren. I had a right lot. It was a new one on me, that. You know, being in court, not spending the whole time worrying I'm about to be found out. You, did keep an awful lot of secrets in all your previous court appearances, didn't you? Yeah, and Odo's making things hard for me every time and all. Just doing my job, Gina. Watching someone else get in the neck's a lot of fun, actually. It was amazing when he showed that dodgy professor's dodgy experiment was a total fix. The dodgy professor, as you put it, Gina, is Mr. Naruhodo's client. Yeah, I'm starting to wish he wasn't, though. It's the boss I feel sorry for. Sent off to do the impossible. What do you mean? He's supposed to arrest the other cove, ain't he? And in time for tomorrow and all. You know, the dodgy engineer, what's his name again? Mr. Drebber, you mean. Enoch Drebber. That's the one, yeah. So the police are looking for this mysterious man with a black monocle. I guess they would be. It's putting too much on the boss, if you ask me. He says it's giving him a gut ache. Oh dear. But I do wonder if that isn't actually from all the fried food. Investigating the scene first. Gina, we were actually hoping we could investigate the scene again. Oh yeah, arrives around here, you can do what you like. Oh, that's alright, is it? I'm gonna be playing with my new friend here. Ah, yes, Toby. Oh, what an annoying dog. To make the most obvious reference I possibly could, I suppose. The machine that exploded must be at the top of these stairs, I presume. I haven't actually seen it yet, so if you don't mind. Oh, sorry, can't go up there, Susie. Suze. Oh, she said Suze. Like I told Ola yesterday, even I ain't allowed near that wreck. What's it called again? The reason we ain't supposed to touch it? The Special Dispensation for Scientific Equipment Act. Is that what you're thinking of? That's the one, that's why only them lot are allowed up to investigate it. What are they called again? The Forensic something? The Forensic Investigation Team. Is that what you were thinking of? That's the one, yeah. But isn't it the case that the special dispensation has been lifted? I think so. I don't really get it, to be truthful with you. You're supposed to get permission from some bigwig as far as I know. What's his name again? Lord Strangle something. I'm not sure that's quite right, Gina. I think you mean Strongheart, perhaps. That's the one, yeah. Apparently he's always watching the time or something. So without Lord Strongheart's express permission, we can't investigate the stage. Let's go to the engineer's whereabouts for now. So Scotland Yard's trying to track down Mr. Enoch Drebber. I wonder if they've had any luck. He's really funny. Got two eyes what don't match. Stole a glimpse of the picture of him earlier. I mean, didn't actually pinch it or nothing. The old devil's got it. Oh, sorry, who? You know, the Scotland Reaper who's always glugging down glasses of that blood red stuff. Ah, Van Zykes. He's always had it in for me, that coup. Don't know what he's always scowling about mine. Probably would have been pretty good boss as it goes. She'd rather be the Reaper's apprentice than a detective's trainee. Well, the way I see it, if the choice is between a chip-guzzling detective and a chalice-glugging demigod, you're equally badly off with both. I suppose you're right. I hadn't thought of it like that. Glad we put that one to bed, at least. Anyway, point is, everyone at the yard's dead set on finding the fishy engineer. But there don't seem no clues to go on, so they're stuck. There's nothing can lead us to Drebber at all. His business card might help. This house has some oil on the reverse side. About this, Gina. Yeah, I'm still learning me letters at the moment. I only know A to E, so if ain't too much bleeding trouble. Actually, Gina, it's the back of the card that's important. Eh? How come? There's just a little smudge on the back, that's all. It turns out this is a very high-quality French machine oil. It has a very particular scent, apparently. Oh, you don't say. Let's have a whiff, then. You sure I don't smell nothing? No, we didn't mean that you should smell it. Oh, right. You mean Toby. His sense of smell is so good he can track people over the oceans, can't he? Professor Harebrain informs us this oil is unique to Mr. Drebber's workshop. How cute, it's sniffing. Sniff, sniff, sniff. I think he's picked up a scent. So I mean, if he follows the scent of this oil, Toby could lead us to the Dodgy Coo's workshop. That's right, that's exactly what we were hoping. Alright, then we'll give it a go. I'll just borrow that. Wait, when did you? Well, once a pickpocket. If I can lead everyone to Drebber's workshop, I'll be the boss's boss for next week. Oh yes, Gina. I'm sure you'll be promoted. Or Gregson. Alright, let's go here and see if we can meet up with Mr. Sholmes. If he's still doing his wax figure impression, that is. Oh my, no wonder it's called the House of Horrors. I'd like to turn my heels and go straight home, via the confectionery. Being scared makes you crave sweets? I can understand that. I was looking forward to a reunion after 6 months away, but there's no sign of Mr. Sholmes anywhere. That's strange. He should be here investigating the abduction of the waxwork. Oh well, I suppose we'll just have to come back again later. I guess we have to go to Strongheart first. Chief Justice's office. Now let's have Lord Strongheart give us the permission slip to meet up there. That's interesting. Who's he speaking with? Lord Chief Justice's office. Oh, who's that? Apologies for fighting bosses. That's right, Ukyo. Since this is a VN, it's a pretty laid-back experience. Especially since we're still only investigating. It'll be a while before we have all the clues together. Oh, who's that standing behind Lord Strongheart? I wonder, I've never seen her before. Who is that? The young champion of the court. You have had some success this morning, I understand. And you've thrown the entire government into disarray as a result. Oh? You mean because of the Professor Harebrain's experiment? Sham science being demonstrated at London's Great Exhibition. The country's been made to look foolish, and now politicians are scrambling to respond. Lord Van Zykes is in Whitehall as we speak, giving an emergency briefing. Oh dear, I didn't mean to cause any trouble there. None of this is your responsibility. The government is entirely blamed for having been taken in. The special dispensation that prevents investigation of the scene will be annulled later today. Once that happens, my forensic investigation team will move in and deal with that scrap metal in no time. Oh, the dog needs out again? Give me just a moment while I do that. Alright, the doggy will mop back in soon, so I'll need to make sure, I'll need to keep an eye on that. And rest assured I still have my water to hydrate with regularly. My throat has really gotten dry. Yeah, this run. Actually, let me take another swig while I'm at it. Swig? Drink? Alright, there we are. It's scrap metal now, is it? Until later then, Lord Strongheart. Now, that definitely looks like an imposing villain. Yes, thank you. And then again, Strongheart himself is kind of reminding me of the police chief from the 5th case of the first Ace Attorney game. What is he up to exactly? Who was that? That was Dr. Courtney C., the Scotland Yard's esteemed chief coroner. She's leading the forensic investigation team handling this case. She was just delivering her report about the victim, in fact. Oh, I see. About Mr. Asman. Following the outcome of the trial earlier, I asked the coroner to reevaluate its findings. I don't have time to tell you what she concluded. If you want to know, you'll have to ask her directly. You can find her in the forensics laboratory. Ah, right. Might as well, then. Now, what were you here to see me about? I can give you 7 minutes and 39 seconds of my time. So he's not running quite so spectacularly late anymore. Forensic investigation team. What exactly is the forensic investigation team you mentioned before? The British Empire's police force must become the most exemplary in the world. For that to happen, it is imperative we embrace forensic science and everything it has to offer. I first created the Forensic Science Investigation Team a year ago now, unofficially of course, to pave the way to that. Goodness, a year ago! Next month's Symposium, I intend to present the results of their work to the world. And once I do that, the House of Lords will be powerless to oppose the creation of a full-scale forensics division. And once that happens, the position of the Attorney General will be mine, and criminals will suffer dearly. What do you mean? Far too long the scoundrels have made a mockery of our legal system with false evidence and bribes. But London's scum is about to be rounded up and burnt in the fires of hell. I intend to see to it personally. By creating the finest police force the world has ever seen, protect our honor and our future. Look at those eyes, he means every word. Dr. Seath is an extremely reliable coroner. When I officially establish the Forensics Division at the Scotland Yard, she will run it as my right-hand woman. Now then, speaking of the Symposium, Miss Mikotaba. Oh, yes, my lord. Your father should be on the high seas as we speak, making his way here to represent the Empire of Japan. Yes, that's right. I understand he will arrive at the beginning of it next month. Are you acquainted, Lord Strongheart? With the Professor Mikotaba, I mean. Oh, the dog needs back in. Give me just a moment now. It was many years ago now, but yes, I remember Dr. Mikotaba very well. Lord Van Zykes. Let's ask about Van Zykes first. I want to ask you about Lord Van Zykes, actually. I heard that his older brother was killed some years ago by some mass murderer known as the Professor who targeted nobles and family, royalty, is that right? You Japanese are a thorough lot. You've done your research well. Yes. And you could say it was that very incident that gave rise to the Reaper. What? Why? When his brother, Clint von Zykes, was murdered, it was just after young Barak had graduated from the University of London and become a prosecutor. When obvious criminals who managed to evade conviction in the court started disappearing, rumors quickly spread throughout the capital. Londoners started to say that wherever Barak von Zykes went, the ghost of his dead brother wasn't far behind. Oh my word. So Van Zykes isn't the Reaper. It's the ghost of his brother? Yeah, a year ago. Oh, that's right. A year ago is when, or was around the time we had that case. The first case of the first game. And that means, yeah, everything is tying together. Or, they're all working together to reform the political system, the justice system, I mean. But to what end? What was it? Ever since that time, he became a very aloof figure in London's legal circles. Dr. Mikotaba. Now, if my memory serves, it was some 15 years ago now that your father came to Britain as a visiting student. That was the year I was born. So yes, 16 years ago, in fact. Mikotaba was a young practitioner in forensic science, and Jigoku accompanied him as a young promising judge. The punctualness and politeness of the Japanese at the time impressed us greatly. Not that I wish to imply impoliteness or carelessness on your part in any way. I didn't think you were. Dr. Mikotaba studied forensics at one of London's large hospitals, St. Sinners, if I'm not mistaken. Dr. Scythe was also there then, as it happens. Then, Dr. Scythe knows my father, does she? She was a young medical assistant at the time, so I doubt their paths crossed regularly, but I've no doubt they knew each other superficially. After all, Dr. Mikotaba was here studying a subject for some 6 years in total. 6 years, that's a long time to be studying abroad, isn't it? I've lived with my grandmother in those years. So he left his newly born daughter behind and went overseas for 6 whole years? It was rather a turbulent time at home. Oh, perhaps father wanted a reason to get away. Why? Well, it was a turbulent time in Japan's history. It was the end of the Age of Samurai, after all. Well, clearly something was going on at the time. Oh, yes, let's Strongheart. Go ahead. It's about Professor Harebrain's experimental machine. We'd like your permission to examine the remains, if possible. Are you well-versed in science, then? Not in the slightest. In fact, you could say I'm barely aware of the subject at all until recently. Well, the special disposition legally prevents investigation of the machine. It's currently being the special dispensation legally preventing the investigation of the machine is currently being annulled. Within a few hours, Dr. Seath's team of forensic experts will begin their own investigation. But I suppose until then, there's no harm in you looking at the wreckage, as long as you touch nothing. Oh, thank you. Being able to look around is better than nothing. And we'll be able to see it, too. Your time is up. You'll have to excuse me now, I'm afraid. My next engagement calls. We are extremely sorry to have troubled you when you are so busy, my lord. I have important matters to attend to in preparation for the symposium, you understand. Stage. Investigating the scene. Gina, what is it again? Yeah, alright, for around here, do what you like. Oh, it's letting me repeat it again. Well, actually, we've just recently been to see Lord Strongheart. Ah, you what? You met him? Last time the boss was called in to go see him. He waited for 3 hours at the Co's office and came back snooping. Tragic. Well, Lord Strongheart has given us permission to examine the scene as long as we touch nothing. Oh yeah? Honestly. Alright then, go ahead. If it turns out you're lying, it'll be boss who gets it. He'll never eat another chip again in his life. So you're still in all this above board, are you? I'm sure everything will be fine. That really would be tragic. Alright then, there's the stairs. Off you go. Oh, thank you, Gina. Alright then, Odo, leave it to me. Sorry. We're gonna get going after that dodgy engineer cove right this minute. Oh, but hang on, someone's supposed to be on guard duty here all the time. I'm afraid we can't help there. We need to get on with our investigation as well, Gina. Oh, right. Oh, well, never mind. I ain't gonna be what gets in the neck. It'll be the boss. Oh, poor Gregson. Again. Ready, Toby? Give that oil scent. Got that oil scent, have you? Come on, boy. See you later. I do hope the scent of that oil leads them to the swindler's workshop. Yeah, I hope so too. Ideally before the dog swims across the channel to France. These stairs lead up to the experimentation stage. Let's go and see what we can find out. Oh my, so this is the machine that was used to deceive people into thinking instantaneous kinesis had taken place. Yeah, that's right. Or rather, it was the machine. It's a little worse for wear at the moment. What extraordinary lengths Professor Harebrain went to in order to obtain the research grant. No, the professor was strict as well. He didn't know anything about it. Yes, of course. It's amazing, though, isn't it? The scale of the whole affair is so very British. You're right about that. You'd never see such a grand deception in Japan, that's for sure. Oh, look, is that Van Zykes? Lord Van Zykes. So I think we're more or less done here, aren't we? Shall we, Mrs. Otto? Already? He's the Reaper, remember? We do well to keep our distance, I think. We have permission to be here, from the top. We're perfectly well allowed to investigate this machine. As long as we don't touch anything. From the top? You mean Lord Strongheart? Exactly. So we can stay here and stare at this wreckage as long as we like. She could have been the center of the explosion here, and it wouldn't have bent her steel will. What a terrible explosion it must have been. Even the steel girders are buckled and twisted in the blast. And what they call the bird cage was right here in the middle of it all. But look, Mr. Naruhodo, that metal grill on the floor. Looks as though it's designed to open. It does, doesn't it? If the floor had opened the precise moment the explosion occurred, the birdcage could have dropped through and disappeared from sight. I don't think there's any doubt this was a very elaborate hoax, was there? This wasn't here yesterday. Really, but if I'm not mistaken, that's the cage in which the victim was standing before he was apparently beamed through the air. That's right, the bird cage, according to what Professor Harebrain said in court. It's made of wood. More precisely, a Japanese cypress, I think. And despite having been an explosion, then falling from a great height, it's relatively unharmed. What wonderfully durable construction, wouldn't you say? I'd understood the forensic investigation team had taken it away yesterday to examine it. I suppose they must have brought it back here when they finished their work. Sadly, not with the body inside of it. No, that's right. I know we were given strict instructions not to touch anything, but still. This is too important a piece of evidence to overlook. We might need it for the trial. Look at that horn-shaped transmitting device. Isn't it amazing? That's exactly what I thought when I first saw it. It makes you think, doesn't it? If only it had just been a normal horn, none of this would have happened. That's almost exactly what I thought as well. If I can predict what you're going to say next in that case. You're about to say, nothing ever goes to plan, aren't you? Oh no, I would never say something like that. However much I look at them, I just can't come to terms with those Tenmari handballs floating in the sky. You've been glaring at them constantly since you came up here. Sorry, the feelings of wanting to ride in one and wanting to never set foot in one are fighting it out inside me. But if you don't look where you're walking, you might fall from the stage. I don't think I'd noticed. That's how fiercely the battle inside me is raging. I think you should make peace with the riding room, Mr. Naruhodo. It really would be much safer that way. What's Von Zykes on about? Least approachable man in the world winner, 10 years in a row. Be strong, Mr. Naruhodo. Your country and your assistants stand firmly behind you. Excuse me, Lord Van Zykes. What is it? Well, a bit of a weather, isn't it? I thought I was making it quite clear that I didn't want to be disturbed. Apparently, Japanese are unequipped to read the signs. Oh, I read them. So, what are you doing here? Entry to this area is strictly prohibited. Oh, well, the thing is, Lord Chief Justice Strongheart granted us permission to investigate, on the condition that we didn't touch anything. And yet you've managed to disturb me. Never mind. State your business, then. Come to think of it, there are quite a few things I'd like to ask Lord Van Zykes about. Not least of which is that awful case, even though it's nothing to do with this one. Ask away then, Miss Naruhodo. You won't know unless you try. Your brother Clint. So, about Clint. Was the name of your older brother, I understand, Lord Van Zykes. Oh, you Japanese. I always have to be on guard whenever you're around. So, you've been investigating me, have you? No, it's not like that. Alright, it is a bit like that. My older brother was also a prosecutor. He was the pride of the Von Zykes family, but tragically, a vicious killer took him from us. The professor, you mean? Is something funny? That's the extent of what you discovered, is it? I shouldn't be surprised. I'm sorry, there's more to it then? Lackluster work is very much your trademark, isn't it? You're too kind. You're going to tar all of our people with the same brush next. So tell me, what is your interest in that historic incident? As it happens, Lord Van Zykes, there's a rather curious case that's come to our attention. Are you aware of the Madame Two-Spells Museum of Waxwork by any chance? I am, naturally. I do believe that since last month I feature in one of the displays there for public scorn. Of course, the infamous Reaper of Bailey would have an would be exhibited, wouldn't he? Well, a particular waxwork's been stolen from the place and held for ransom. A particular waxwork? Which? Wait, you mean? Yes, it's the professor. Mr. Sholmes is investigating the case as we speak. I was unaware of that. He's turned white as a sheet. Are the police trying to locate the engineer, Mr. Drebber, already? Surely that goes without saying. We are very keen to see him found as well. Trouble is, we don't have much to go on aside from the description of the man we heard from the court earlier. Which, according to Professor Hairbrain, was of a tall, thin gentleman who has straight white hair and wears a black monocle. So I was wondering if, I realized it's probably not possible, but, we'd very much appreciate any more clues you can give us. Wow, Susato-san really knows how to take the bull by the horns. Fine, why not? I have a photograph of the man here from an investigation 10 years ago. Though it appears he had already the black monocle at the time. Back monocle. What? Oh, no, nothing. I was just surprised that you shared that with us. We all need the man's testimony in court tomorrow, which means we have to do everything we possibly can to track him down in the short time available, so why wouldn't I show you the photograph? That's a good point, yeah. What is it about Lord Van Zyke? Sometimes I just can't work him out at all. It's hard to make out, but he appears to be wearing a monocle with a black glass. Perhaps he lost an eye. So, this may actually be Cosma. Cosma. Ah, the file requested for the court tomorrow. Thank you. Susato knows. Are you alright, Susato? Who is this man, Mr. Naruhodo? Lord Van Zyke's apprentice, apparently. So I'm not the only one. Susato can see it too. Yeah, this confirms it. It has to be if we both recognize them. Lord Van Zyke's, may we speak with your apprentice a moment? With him? Why? Kazuma-sama. So it is him. Kazu... I don't believe it. Your posture, your presence. It can only be. It's you, isn't it, Kazuma-sama? I felt something strange the very first time I encountered this cloaked figure, as if I knew him somehow. And here I thought I was doing something, thought it was something silly like being Sholmes or Gina, but no. Can it really be you, Cosma? Oh wait. Too late. What is going on here? Your apprentice. What is your interest in my apprentice exactly? You act as if you know the man or something. Well, since when has he been in your care? I don't recall you having an apprentice before I left Britain 6 months ago. Lord Strongheart introduced him to me about 3 months ago now, with instructions to mentor him as a prosecutor. He didn't tell you why, did he? The man appears to be suffering from amnesia. He's forgotten every last detail about himself. His amnesia. Tomorrow he will appear in court at my side. He's to serve as my judicial assistant, on Lord Strongheart's orders. He'll be in court with us. Now then, unless I'm much mistaken, I believe that this conversation has run its course. Oh, yes, thank you. I definitely saw a reaction there. When Susato called out like that, it really seemed to hit a nerve. She called out Kazuma-sama. You'd already met that masked man, haven't you, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, yesterday, in fact, at Lord Van Zyke's office. I see. And if Kazuma-sama really is still alive, it means Mr. Sholmes lied to us. I know. We're gonna need to speak to him about that. You're going to have to leave now. The forensic investigation team are due to arrive shortly. If they find you here, it will cause problems. What sort of problems? Foreign affairs problems. Well, we could do without that. Alright, we'll be on our way then. Let's go, Mr. Zato. Of course. Well, we have a new place to go. Let's go there. The 23rd of October. Forensics Laboratory. I believe this is it, Dr. Seath's laboratory. That chemical smell really assaults the nose, and there's plenty to assault the eyes within here, too. It looks as though the doctor isn't here. We're here now, so we may as well do some sightseeing, don't you think? What a seasoned tourist you've become, Miss Susato. We could just have a little look around, being careful not to upset any restless souls. Table and set of sharp tools. When considered each in isolation, all looks quite innocent. So why is it that when you put them all side by side, they seem so horribly disturbing? It might be best not to ponder too deeply. Seeing the large tome that's open on the desk does make me wonder, though. How can anybody concentrate on bookwork with this terrible odor of chemicals in the air? You'd either have to have a cast iron constitution or a really terrible sense of smell. Why does he have a D-pad for his pin? Goldstown. This almost looked like Miss Brett's hat without the peacock thing. No, the swan. But unfortunately, well, for better or for worse, we know it can't be her now that we know that she was a phony the entire time. Well, look at this. What a magnificent display case. The cherry wood's been polished to a high sheen, and intricate carving is a joy to behold. Western cabinet makers are really skilled, aren't they? Do you have something to say about the skeleton side, Mr. Naruhodo? Miss Susato, can't you tell that I'm trying very hard to avoid talking about the terrifying contents of the case? It's how I cope. I'll be sure to remember that from now on. Nothing particularly of note. Look at this big, thick book here. Ah, it appears to be an accounting ledger. It's a record of the forensic investigation team's spending, I believe. Oh. What is it? It's clear the team purchases various equipment and supplies on a monthly basis, but, well, one entry seems rather strange. Really, in what way? They're buying 500 scalpels every month. 500? They must be working really hard on dissecting corpses. I don't know, judicial autopsies are only carried out in certain special circumstances. And scalpel blades can be sharpened again, too. Does seem a bit strange, you're right. 500 scalpels a month. What could they possibly be using all of them for? What are you doing? I'm sorry, we had something we wanted to ask you, but you weren't here. Oh, she's got a big snake theme to her, doesn't she? I can see it on her arm. So we thought you'd snoop around. That's acceptable to people in the East, is it? Well, what do you want? Lord Strongar's told us to see that it was you who examined the victim's body. Or, Mr. Asmund's body, I mean. So we came to ask you about your findings, on Lord Strongheart's advice. Very well. If the Lord Chief Justice has given his consent, I'll tell you what our investigation has revealed. But when we're done, you must leave immediately. Look at all the bottles on the shelves of these cabinets. What an assortment of chemicals. Those ones here are labeled highly toxic. Oh, that's worrying, because there's also things that look like salt and pepper shakers in here. Oh yes, and they actually say salt and pepper on them. Doctor probably spends a lot of time in this room, I suppose. Perhaps she has meals here sometimes. Life goes on even when you're surrounded by death. Your findings. So, you want to know what the forensic investigation team determined from its examination of the scene? The victim, Mr. Odie Osmond, who disappeared from the experimentation stage amidst an explosion, and the Mr. Asmund who appeared moments later partway up the Crystal Tower, without question, one and the same person. That was the team's conclusion. But that can't be right. If it was an elaborate trick, we can only speculate about how it was carried out. Oh, let's see. If two people look very similar to each other were involved, they could have made it appear as if one single person had switched places, couldn't they? Very true, but sadly, in this instance, that was not the case. The man who disappeared and the man who subsequently reappeared was the same person. The fingerprints at the scene make that quite evidence. Fingerprints. They're not yet officially recognized as forensic evidence by the British justice system, but one day they'll be used as investigative aid as a matter of course. Oh my, that would mean the instantaneous kinesis did take place. So where does that leave us? My team was tasked with investigating, not drawing conclusions. Oh. Instantaneous kinesis is impossible, and yet the body did move from one place to the other. This hasn't cleared anything up at all. It's made the whole thing more of a mystery, in fact. What the? That's a plague doctor mask out of nothing. Mama, what is this? Oh, where did she spring from? And did she just call the doctor her mama? This is a lawyer, dear. Oh. Hello. Pleased to meet you. Yes, I'm a defense lawyer, Rhinosuke Naraho. Mama, yes. Can I cut this one up? What? I've never seen the inside of an Eastern person before. I want to know what it looks like. Of course you can't. This is all live specimens you can very well see. Boring. I think I just had a near-death experience. Oh dear, Mr. Naruhodo, you're as pale as a corpse. Then let's leave before I'm mistaken for one. Well, I think we've done all the investigating we can here for now. If we could just determine the whereabouts of Mr. Drebber. I'm sure Gina and little Toby won't let us down. Now then, do you think we ought to try to speak with Mr. Sholmes at this point? We have things to discuss, I'm dying to meet him again after all these months. Yes, it's quite possible he might know something useful, you're right. We'll have to find him at Madame Two Spells. He's supposed to be working there as a temporary waxwork exhibit. Yes, Iris told me all about his latest unusual adventure. Madame Two Spells. Dispels. Madame Dispels. Here we are again at the House of Horrors. I'm afraid I haven't gotten used to this place yet. I'd still like to turn my heels and go straight home, via the confectionery, of course. Zada-san really is it really is after something sweet today, isn't she? Eek! But what's the matter? Look, Mr. Naruhodo, look at that waxwork. I'm quite sure it wasn't there before. That looks exactly like Mr. Sholmes, down to every last detail. Aha! What is it? Oh, sorry, I think you find... That's the temporary waxwork himself. Ah, the friend of my dedicated employee. Yes, hello again. It's Rhinosuke Naruhodo. I must say, I'm quite spellbound by the great detective. He's a marvel. My precious waxwork is already back where it belongs. You don't mean... But yes, the mystery is solved already. Wow, Mr. Sholmes can really engage his brain when he's hungry enough. So as you can see, he has returned to his habitual duties. Yes. His habitual duties. Hello. Do not disturb. Poor Suzato-san, she looks very perplexed. We need to see who this quote-unquote professor really is. Ah, yes, the heavy curtains in the middle of the House of Horrors. Whatever's on the other side of them, you just know it's gotta be terrifying, don't you? The sign says it's the Madame Two Spells special exhibit. It seems you have to pay extra to go inside. I know, can you believe that? Pay more money, as if we haven't been scared enough already. It's not my doing, Mr. Naruhodo. If the waxwork's been returned, then we're going to be seeing it before the end of this investigation, and who it is going to be a big deal. We really do need to speak with Mr. Sholmes, and I am longing to say hello again. Where is he? I think you might find that he's quite nearby, actually. Oh, what do you... Indeed, my dear fellow. Indeed, my dear. Was it as I? The world-famous great detective waxwork... Detective and waxwork, Mr. Herlock Sholmes. Suzato-san, Suzato-san. My most humble apologies. I thought I died and gone to eternal paradise for a moment, via London. My dear madam, allow me to make amends by offering you a tasty free deduction at some point, as long as it's not of questionable street food quality. I don't understand. Why are you working as a waxwork here, Mr. Sholmes? Merely a secret identity, you understand? Though the case is largely solved now. Largely solved? We're talking about the waxwork abduction, I presume. Indeed we are, my good fellow. As I predicted, it's as easy as proverbial pie. Though I confess I've yet to partake of pie, proverbial or otherwise, or any other food so far today myself. That stomach rumble echoed throughout the whole museum. So how'd you manage to solve it so quickly? Ah well, do remember I said it was largely solved. Anyway, I simply negotiated with the culprit. Are you familiar with the so-called telephone? Oh yes, it's a most modern invention, allowing you to hold a conversation with people far away. In Japan, only the imperial capital and a handful of other cities are connected as of yet. This morning, a telephone call was received here from the perpetrator of the abduction. As such, I was able to negotiate terms, and in the end, the waxwork was returned. That's amazing! Just between you and I, it would appear the culprit had always intended to return the stolen waxwork in any event. Oh, but I thought whoever was responsible had demanded a ransom, no? Yes, I think perhaps the ransom demand was necessary to avoid unwanted suspicion regarding the true motive. It was used to fake the... okay, yeah, so it was I was right, it was used to fake Mr. Asmon's teleportation. Oh, does that not mean your negotiating was entirely unnecessary? A fact I must ask you to keep from Madame Tuspel at all costs. A hungry young Iris awaits my return at Baker Street, after all. Poor Iris. Now then, I do sense that you have some business with this great waxwork. First of all, Enoch Drebber. Alright, so we're in the process of trying to track somebody down. Oh. Yes, a man by the name of Enoch Drebber. He's the swindler who duped Professor Hairbrain and the engineer who built the kinesis machine. A swindler and an engineer? Quite the modern man. He also seems to be a conjurer of sorts too, with some considerable knowledge of stage magic. We really need to locate him before the trial resumes tomorrow morning. But we have so few clues to go on, that's the trouble. Do you have any good ideas? I have no data yet. It is a capital mistake to have good ideas before one has data. If I knew something of the man's appearance, I might be in a better position to help. Yeah, Drebber's appearance. Fortunately for you, however, presently I have little to occupy myself and little to fill my stomach. As soon as you find any clue, no matter how small, I shall gladly give you my thoughts on it. Now, here's the other thing, Cosma's death. Mr. Sholmes, did you lie to us? My dear Naruto, stay that piercing stare, what's this all about? Last winter, when we were first on our way to Britain aboard steamship, your words were very clear. So then let's unravel this mystery and discover what events led to this curious murder. You told us that it was murder. You examined Cosma's body. Indeed, and wherein lies the problem? We met him earlier today, the victim Cosma... You're quite sure? He was wearing some sort of mask and was apparently suffering from amnesia. But yes, I'm quite sure. It was Cosma-sama. You must have known at the time, Mr. Sholmes, that he wasn't actually dead. Well, I can only assume I was swept into the murderous atmosphere of the moment. But the fellow wasn't dead at all? Wahaha. Priceless. I don't suppose that performance would pass muster, would it, Mr. Naruto? I could believe the crewman present at the time made a mistake, but not you, Mr. Sholmes. I'll now tell you something of the first importance, my dear fellow. Great detectives are wont to lie. It'll serve you well to remember that. Please, Mr. Sholmes. Tomorrow in court, you will find yourself on the threshold of very great mystery. For now, I'm afraid that's all I can say. Mr. Sholmes, would you cast your eyes over this photographic print? It's of Mr. Enoch Drebber, the face of the engineer we seek. Well, all Englishmen look broadly the same, of course, so looking at a photograph won't be particularly instructive. You are right, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, yes, forgive me. Very interesting this, very interesting indeed. What's wrong, Mr. Sholmes? You've turned quite pale all of a sudden. I have a suggestion, Mr. Naruhodo. Will you indulge me? What is it? Sure. As I explained to you when you arrived, the missing waxwork has been returned, and I personally reinstalled the exhibit from which it was taken. Behind those thick curtains. Okay, we're gonna finally see it. Oh yes, the Professor exhibit, isn't it? Would you like to see it for a mere 5 shillings? That's a special, one-time only price, you understand? What? This opportunity won't come again, I might add. Won't you like to see the fruits of my labor? Oh, well, we do have a rather pressing investigation to carry out. Perhaps we could postpone? The price is very reasonable, 5 shillings. I think you'll find it's well worth it. Are you being quite serious, Mr. Sholmes? Surely you need only look at my expression to ascertain if the seriousness or silliness? I can never tell with you, that's the point. Very well, it couldn't hurt. Here's your 5 shillings. Gratefully received. So, the special exhibit awaits behind the curtain. I invite you to peruse it at your leisure. Well, the money's been spent, so let's go see the special exhibit. Through those heavy curtains at last. Well, 5 shillings we've had to pay. Doesn't seem right somehow that Mr. Sholmes slipped the money into his own pocket, does it? No. Ah, we could ask Gina to retrieve it for us, using her special skills. Pickpocketing police officers and detectives. This is what makes Britain great. Not to mention demigod prosecutors taking the law into their own hands or chip-loving inspectors. Inspector Gregson comes off rather well on that list, I think. So who is this man? Is it in fact Drebber? Or is it special exhibit? Oh dear, I felt a shiver run down my spine as soon as we walked in here. Mr. Zotto, I say we turn on our heels and go straight home. It's a really big confectionery. Via a really big confectionery. We certainly can't do that. We paid 5 shillings already. True. Actually, now that I'm looking a little more closely, we paid good money to see an exhibit that's clearly incomplete. The nerve of that great detective is far more terrifying than anything else in this place. This must be what Mr. Sholmes meant when he said this case was largely solved. Be that as it may, Mr. Sholmes heavily implied there'd be a clue about the engineer in here, didn't he? But where? Since we paid 5 shillings, let's do 5 shillings worth of investigation, shall we? Yes, shall we? We'll get what we paid for. There's that fear of frustration that's making Suzato's voice tremble. Well, first of all, the gravekeeper. This part of the exhibit just as disturbing as the rest. Looks so real. Seems to be a young man in a white overcoat. And he has a large shovel in his hand, too. Look. Perhaps we should investigate a little more detail. What's this here? Well, this should appear to be a lens in the middle, so I believe that's probably a camera. A camera? But so small! British technology is incredible, isn't it? I mean, what about Mr. Sholmes' skin prints? I think perhaps you should treat Mr. Sholmes' inventions as exceptions to the rule. But anyway, why would the man be in a graveyard at night with a camera? I wonder. Perhaps he was trying to capture the moment a dead body came back as a ghost on film. We'll just borrow this for a little while, I think. By looking at the photographic plate inside the camera, we can see what picture was taken. What's a photographic plate? It's a piece of glass coated in special emulsion that reacts to light coming through the lens. If we open the cover at the back of the camera, we should find it. Let's have a look. You should see yourself, Suzato-san. Your eyes are shining. You really do look like machinery, don't you? What a large shovel. He's holding it rather ominously, isn't he? What on earth was the man doing with a shovel in a graveyard in the middle of the night? Mrs. Otto, yes? That's a spade, isn't it? No, it's a shovel. No, shovels are for digging. That's for scooping up loose material. It's a spade. We've been through this, Mr. Naruhodo. It's a shovel. No, although we haven't considered trowels. We've allowed ourselves to be distracted, I feel. Perhaps we should concentrate on what the man was doing with such an implement. So we're gonna bury the hatchet? You're right, though. What was this man doing in the graveyard in the first place? A lantern? What's a lantern? They say lantern. That's quite a large lamp the man's carrying, or is it a lantern? It's not unlike a Japanese Chochin paper lantern, actually, is it? Lamp, lantern, Chochin. The point is, it casts very little light. To be walking alone in graveyard at night with only this? Well, I certainly couldn't do it. I'm not sure I could visit a graveyard at all, even in broad daylight, to be honest. Face. I can't see his face very well, can you? Perhaps if I just, Oh. Do you think you should be manhandling the exhibits, Mr. Naruto? I'll put it back exactly how it was, don't worry. Wait, what? Ah, what on earth? How can... I don't believe it. A black monocle. Mr. Naruto, is it possible this man is... Yes. It's Enoch Drebber. The color of his hair is different, but it's unmistakably him. Indeed it is. Mr. Sholmes. This man is the subject of your present hunt, I believe. Yes, that's right. Just who is this man? Why is he here in this exhibit? And why does the convict behind him have no head? The head was missing when the model was returned by the thief who stole it. What a surprise. So then the case isn't yet solved, is that it? I did not say so myself. Largely solved was my words. But I must locate the missing head. So sweet. As Matt would say, or I'll be in grave trouble. A very hungry Irish still awaits my return to Baker Street, preferably with rations. Ah. Do you know, though, something about this room is strange. Strange? What do you mean? Well, the displays in the House of Horrors are supposed to depict real events, are they not? Indeed they are, Mr. Zato. Do go on. And as terrifying as they are, the scenes in the other exhibits are believable. But this one... Oh, they're right, it's basically a zombie scene. This surely couldn't have ever really happened, could it? I think it's time I educated you a little about the nature of the incidents involving the professor 10 years ago. The resurrecting convict. I believe I told you a little about the professor yesterday, did I not? He took the lives of 5 victims, every one being either a member of the aristocracy or royalty. All were attacked by an enormous hunting hound and had their throats ripped from their bodies. Oh gosh, an enormous hound! How awful! After the taking the life of his 5th victim, the killer was apprehended. It was a case of unprecedented magnitude in Britain, you understand. Accordingly, the professor was tried in a closed court. No members of the public were permitted. So you mean the professor's identity... As you surmise, my dear fellow, his identity was never made public. So if this is the Japanese person who betrayed Lord Van Zyke, so that would explain why he's racist against the Japanese. But if he was also from an exchange student from Japan... Oh, because remember, the very first case, the very first game was a very hush-hush one itself, remember, because it was with a British person. A British person was the victim. And then they had another one with Miss Brett. But they, well, sort of. They couldn't properly try her because she was supposed to be in Shanghai, where they'd have their own court case and she'd be basically released from what we were hearing. Naturally, he was found guilty and was summarily sentenced to death by hanging. He was buried in a grave at Lowgate Cemetery, which adjoins the rear of the prison where he'd been held. However, that was not the end of the affair. Oh? You see, the very night he was buried, a convicted man somehow came back to life. Came back to life? He clawed his way out of the ground and emerged into the moonlit graveyard. The exhibit here depicts that very scene as described by the sole witness to those chilling events. There was a witness, but of course, my dear fellow, it was none other than the young man in white overcoat. Enoch Drebber. What happened? The young witness. So this is a waxwork model of Enoch Drebber. 10 years ago, a convicted professor, having been gibbeted and buried, emerged from his grave in the dead of night. The sole witness to the unimaginable scene was this young man. From appearances, I'd say he was about 20 years old. So horrifying. Scared out of his wits, the young Drebber ran to a nearby police station to report the incident. And the sheer terror of what he'd seen is said to have turned his hair white overnight. Yeah, as shown in the photograph we have of him, his hair is in fact completely white. For the following few days, the story of what he'd seen was on the front page of every capital. The public was frantic for every last detail about the killer who'd come back to life. And as you've seen, an exhibit was even created here at Madame Tussauds. I can quite understand why the man's hair turned white, certainly. What I don't understand is what Mr. Drebber was doing there in the first place, in a lonely graveyard in the middle of the night. Yes, what was he up to? Following the execution. The professor's acts of terror threw London's upper classes into panic 10 years ago. It was a great scandal, one might say, at the very highest level of society. And since the killer's identity was never made public, rumors abounded. After all, no killer had ever before systematically employed a dog as a weapon of murder. Yeah, I can imagine the impact the case must have had. At the time, of course, the rumors abated. So too did talk of shocking witnesses' account of the convict who come back to life. It was forgotten, dismissed as dubious ghost story, as a preposterous parlor tale. Oh, but why did people stop believing it? Why? Simply because there was no resurrection to speak of, as it was established the fact. What do you mean by no resurrection? The police investigated the grave in Lowgate Cemetery and published their findings. The convict's body was found to be buried exactly where it had been following execution. No, that would mean Mr. Drebber must have lied to the police and the newspapers. That would appear to be the only logical explanation, yes. The young man subsequently vanished from society and nothing's been heard of him since. It's rather striking, then, that he would resurface now, don't you think? Of course, the convicted murderer couldn't really have come back to life, that's not possible. But Drebber's hair is unusually white, and if that really did happen overnight as a result of shock, it's hard to believe the incident was an out-and-out lie. Mr. Holmes, about this. As you'll see, I'm rather busy at the moment. If it's advice you seek, come to my office tomorrow and I shall be happy to help you. Shall we say, threepence per item? A threepence per item shall be the consultation fee. That's 2 hours of gas, that is. Can't find anything out of place. Ooh, this. Ah, look here, Mrs. Otto. Oh yes, the wood's cracked and broken a little. I suppose because it fell from such a height? Yeah, from the height in which the balloon was flying down to the crystal tower below. Fall about 30 feet, or 9 meters. leaving the man inside tragically dead. Oh, wait. Mr. Sholm, could you look at this photograph again? I see, so that's it. What? Have you worked something out? There's indeed one deduction to be made from this photograph, yes. Each time you show it to me, it will cost you 5 shillings. Otherwise, I have nothing to add. Wonderful. And nothing for me to take away, either. Doesn't matter if they're here in Britain or Japan, graveyards are scary. Now that I come to think of it, this is the first time I've seen a British grave. According to what I've read, the custom in Britain is to bury the dead as they are, without cremation. Wait, what? But if you do that, you might accidentally bury people while they're still alive. I'm not sure that would be worse than accidentally incinerating people while they're still alive. I think we can both agree that's best not to still be alive when our time comes, then. And what am I supposed to say to that? I'll just test this out right here. Oh, Yasmin. Yes, a fearsome adversary. What, you mean you fought him? I once infiltrated his crime organization in order to investigate a man and his activities. But he saw through my disguise instantly. I still remember what the man said to me now. What was it? Who ever saw such a tall old lady? Old lady. Indeed, but my special disguise hasn't seen the light of day again since that humiliation. Mrs. Monocle's retired. I would give my right arm to see that. Oh yeah, he already said this last time we were investigating. It's just a second. I think I'm supposed to do something right now, but I'm not sure what, since I don't have the... Oh, it's the same as showing him the, picture, I guess. Alright. Not here. I feel like I'm missing something. Oh, I have to examine this still. This must be the killer, the fiend known as the professor. Yeah, I think so. According to what Madame Tuspel said, he killed 5 victims, all noble or royal blood. The waxwork's so lifelike, isn't it? Like all the models in this place. I know it looks like it could start moving at any moment, doesn't it? If only it had a head, that is. Perhaps we should examine it in a little more detail. So this is the condemned man. Yes, so this is the condemned man. Yeah, the so-called professor. Then perhaps his head was chopped off by a guillotine? But unable to find peace, he emerged from the grave as a headless ghost? Do we have to entertain such terrifying ideas, Mrs. Otto? Anyway, I'm sure the model had a head once. There's a metal fitting for it, see? Oh, then perhaps Mr. Sholmes absent-mindedly forgot to reattach it? That's extremely absent-minded. That's an extremely absent-minded detective you're describing, isn't it? Or perhaps they absent-mindedly forgot to include the head when he or she returned to the museum. And that would be an extremely absent-minded thief. Could there have been some other reason why only the head wasn't returned? Well, whatever the reason, it means we don't know what the face of this infamous professor looked like, do we? Oh. There's something caught just inside the jacket there. Looks like a piece of broken glass. Quite a big piece, too. It's very thick, isn't it? About 5 times thicker than the normal window glazing. Where could such a thick piece of glass have come from, I wonder? I suppose it must have been made thick to increase its strength. But why? Well, perhaps because the glass had been span a particularly wide area in such a big building. Ah, well, we've seen a large glass building recently, haven't we? And some of the glass is broken, too. You don't mean... Exactly, the Crystal Tower at the Great Exhibition. Why would glass in the Crystal Tower be lodged inside this waxworks jacket? Makes you think, doesn't it? Earlier in court, we established the kinesis experiment was a trick, and now we discover this fragment of glass here in the waxwork. Is it just a coincidence? What the bleeding Nora, Odo? Oh, what have you gone and done? Gina, what are you doing here? I asked Iris and she said this is where you'd be, so... Gina, not so loud in the museum. Madame Tuspel will have you take a position as a waxwork if you're not careful. I think there might be a more pressing concern. I still had some flash power left from 6 months ago, so... Alright, Gina, we understand, but please, put down the gun. Sorry I got scared. You should try being the one on the other end of that barrel sometime. Oh, he didn't say sometime, he just said on the other end of the barrel. Oh, so what brings you here, Gina? What brings me here? What do you think? We found it. We found that Cove's workshop. What, you found Drebber's workshop? Yep, Toby's nose took me straight there. Boss and the others are heading over there now in a drag, so let's come on. Here's the address. I got the boss to write it out. Oh, thank you, Gina. We'll make our way there at once. Alright, then see you there. You go. Don't mind me. I'll just stay here, being still. What? I know my place in the exhibit over there. Oh dear, someone's feeling sorry for himself. This piece of glass is almost as thick as it is wide. Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. If you were to compare it to a human, only Mr. Sholmes has such thick skin. There's really no need for such a comparison, Mr. Naruhodo, as you well know. Anyway, it can only be from the Crystal Tower, surely. Yeah, I think so too. It was probably made especially to meet the demands of the great structure. I want to make sure I didn't miss anything again. Let's go, Mr. Sholmes, you're coming. Your words hearten me, I must say, but if I were to shirk my duties here, Madam would have me pay monetary recompense and Iris's dinner plate would be empty once more. Forget that, I'll pay you for everything. And there's not a moment to lose, my dear fellow. I shall hear a carriage at once. What a wonderful machine. You really love contraptions like this, don't you? Oh yes, anything mechanical I find absolutely irresistible. Almost irresistible, surely. But whenever I see a pocket watch, for example, I can't help myself. I simply have to take it apart. That's, worrying. Yes, Father, tell the time by the rumblings of his stomach now. He's given up having a watch. Poor Professor Mikataba. Blood? What's this doing there? Look, Mr. Naruhodo. What is it? On the bellows, just here. There seems to be some very dark red stains. Yeah, you're right. It looks like blood, actually. Oh my. I'm sure it's not what you're thinking. Now we finally have some real clues we can work with. Oh look, the cover came open. Yes, now there should be a glass plate inside. You have to change the plate with each new photograph you want to take, you see. Is something wrong? There's no plate, it's been removed. Ah, what a pity, but I suppose if you think about it, this wouldn't be the actual camera to be used at the time. It's like the waxwork is an actual person, so we'd never found a photographic print of the executed convict coming back to life anyway. Oh, yes, you're quite right, of course. Of course, Zato-san, she looks devastated. No offer to share the cost from Mr. Sholmes, then. I'll gladly play half, Mr. Naruto. Thank you, Mr. Zato. Right, let's go. 23rd of October, Enoch Drebber's workshop. That looks like... Oh! It's another super high voltage instantaneous kinesis machine! Indeed, it would appear so, though only a prototype, naturally. Ah, I got here then. Gina, well done for finding this place. And in such little time. You've really worked miracles. It's Toby here, is the miracle worker. Wolf. I thought your lot would show up before long. Oh, Inspector, that's the one knitted brow. It looks like he's eating a lemon, not a bag of fish and chips. So, Inspector, is there any sign of the engineer? Sadly not. We didn't find a soul in here. Oh, what a shame. Well, thank you for letting us know about this place and giving us the chance to investigate. According to what Gina tells us, we only found it thanks to the clue you lot turned up. I wouldn't want to say go to Paris with a debt of gratitude unpaid now, would I? Thank you. Anyway, if you're hoping to snoop around in here, I'd get cracking. Lord Van Zykes and the forensic investigation team are on their way here as we speak. Them again. I imagine you got the picture by now. They don't take too kindly to lore types. Right. So then, my dear fellow, let's turn this place upside down while we have the chance. And you, Sholmes. Pardon? They take even less kindly to great detectives than they do lawyers. Ah. Very well, Gregson. But you may consider me nothing more than an inconspicuous waxwork model. Right then, let's see what we can find here. It's a European-style quiver of arrows with steel bolts inside. Oh, you don't suppose... Crossbow bolts, these. And just the right size of that bow you lot turned up at the exhibition grounds. So in other words... Yep, that's more evidence to support your theory. It all goes to show Drebber was the one pulling the strings behind the scene, the whole scam. This door doesn't want to open. Yeah, looks like it's got a pretty hefty lock on it. There's a specialist locksmith on his way over from the yard, so hands off till he gets here. With permission, Spectre. I could have the lock open in less than a minute. Well, you don't have the permission, and no one's giving it to you. Gregson looked as though he really enjoyed that. Well, there's no sound of anybody on the other side. No, Drebber must have fled at first sign of danger. A trophy. Ah, this appears to be most interesting. Yes, most interesting indeed, wouldn't you say? Rather impressive looking back massager for sure. I've no doubt that if you hit your shoulders a few times with that, your aches and pains will soon go away. It's a Royal Society trophy for excellence in science. A young scientist could wish for no higher honor. Oh. Would you like a massage? No, I'm fine, thank you. I had no idea it was such a grand thing. I think it's becoming increasingly clear that there's much more to this Mr. Enoch Drebber than mere conjuring tricks. I couldn't agree more, my dear madam. And how about you, Mr. Naruhodo? Wouldn't you like to take it with you? For your tired shoulders, of course. He's not gonna let that go, is he? It's curious, though, isn't it? You'd expect such an important trophy to be proudly on display somewhere, not haphazardly cast aside. English gentlemen can be quite a mystery at times. Let's see what the plaque says exactly. There's a little metal plaque here, look. Fostering burgeoning talent for the future of scientific discovery. Seems rather ironic, doesn't it? But clearly Mr. Drebber was a really talented scientist. I thought maybe there's something inside of it, but it's not giving me any reaction. I'm sorry, Mr. Naruhodo, that machine's covered by the Special Suspension for Scientific Equipment Act. There'd be serious repercussions if we were to examine it from the Crown and the government. Well, those two don't seem to be holding back. It's quite hollow inside. No working parts or devices of deception may be seen, my dear fellow. No loose chain drop on the floor? No. Not even a bone for Toby here, my dear fella. British people are very much ruled by their own ideals, aren't they? I think that's just those two, Mrs. Otto. Oh, is something wrong, Mrs. Otto? Well, I thought I heard a noise from the far side of that door. Well, Gina, do you hear it too? Yeah, I heard it all. What'd you reckon, Toby? Right, mind the grease. Whoever's in there, open up. This is Scotland Yard. Oh my, someone is in there. This rotten bleeding lock. My dear Gregson, as I said only minutes ago, if only it were countenanced, I could unlock that door in less than a minute. Fine, I'll take the rap for it. Just get us through the blasted door. There, you may enter at will. You've confused minutes with seconds, I think. Time is of the essence, I feel. What are we waiting for? Nothing for it, I suppose. This is an emergency. There's a strong possibility beyond that door is the engineer you all seek. Be prepared for action, my dear fellow. Yes. What's happened in here? Why is everything upside down? Rats, there ain't no one in here after all. Oh, but there must be. It was only moments ago we heard those noises. Maybe that's the sound of Drebber running away. There's only one door in this room. and no windows that can afford an escape route. The skylights are too high. What's that up there? All those footprints on the ceiling? Well, what if we have there then? Looks like someone was trying to burn something in a hurry. Oh, that looks like a set of blueprints. To what? To that Professor Hairbrain's bar machine, is it? Blimey, if we had these, there'd have been no need to trying to investigate all that scrap metal. There's something of great interest here too, though. This rope was lying on the floor at the foot of that pillar. A rope? What's significant about that? Never mind. You see, but you do not observe, Mr. Naruhodo. We must investigate the entire room thoroughly, and before the forensic team arrives, too. There's no denying it, is there? Their footprints. On the ceiling? Yes, it would appear so. I simply can't imagine how they came to be. Isn't there a Susato shoot-up or something? Like a Susato takedown or something? I'm no wonderful woman, Mr. Naruhodo. That would make her almost superhuman, I suppose. That's a really lovely model, just now looks like a real flying balloon. I think it's probably staying aloft in the same principle as a full-size balloon, using gas. A green flying balloon. It does have the hallmarks of that amazing deception at the Great Exhibition, doesn't it? Could it be? The whole thing was planned here in this very workshop? And the fact everything's upside down almost implies it was all on the ceiling. Does this mean the entire room was rotated at one point? No, because look at the, nothing particular of note. Yeah, the stove here is not upside down. Almost every piece of furniture is upside down. Even Mr. Sholmes' suite isn't ever this much of a mess. You're in no position to comment on that mess, Mr. Naruhodo. I suppose it's not quite the same thing, is it? I mean, it's not messy in here, per se. It's that everything here is literally upside down. Why? I have the feeling he locked himself in the safe, knowing that if the explosion goes off, it'll destroy all the evidence and he can leave later. It's a very large safe. I don't suppose even Mr. Sholmes could open that lock. Although if we were a thief, we could just steal the entire thing, I suppose. It's bolted to the floor to prevent exactly that sort of underhanded trick, Mr. Naruhodo. Well then, you could just steal the floor as well, I suppose. I'm sorry, but you really aren't making any sense at all. Anyway, I think we can agree that whatever's inside must be very important. Mr. Sholmes, have you found something? Ah, Mr. Naruhodo, yes. As a point of fact, something rather fascinating. What do you make of this? Let's see. I've never seen anything like this before. It looks like a bundle of thick cigars wrapped in a watch to me, but ah! Mrs. Otto, what's the matter? That's surely that's a time bomb, isn't it? What? What'd you say? A time... sorry, but what is a time bomb exactly? You truly are one of a kind, Mr. Naruhodo. I won't take that as a compliment. You don't know nothing, do you, Odo? You haven't got a clue what it is either, do you, Gina? I invite you to consult a dictionary later, Mr. Naruhodo. This particular specimen's no time bomb, although I confess it has a very similar appearance. Oh, well, thank goodness. But then what is it? I see, so that's it. Goodness, Mr. Sholmes! Have you seen the heart of the matter? There are times when I consider my lot most unfair. I'm fated never to know how it feels to flunder as you do when a puzzle presents itself. But I have learned to accept the hardships that come with being a great detective, Mrs. Otto. Here we go, I feel a great deduction coming. Once again, I can draw two conclusions from the scene before us. First is the inverted nature of the furniture of this room. It is a work of Drebber himself. Oh, but how could you... And the second conclusion is that small device on the floor there is, without question, completely genuine. Oh, please, Mr. Sholmes, you must explain everything. It will be a pleasure. After all, it is a great detective's civic duty to teach the Scotland Yard the finer points of trade. Well, Inspector Gregson seems delighted with the idea anyway. Oh, you deflected the inspector's glare with such fortitude there. Well done. You're too kind, my dear madam. I hereby dedicate this great deduction to you. Kindly stand just there, Miss Susato. Oh, yes. Be delighted. Alright, so shall we begin? Once again, Sherlock Holmes is proud to present his logic and reasoning spectacular. We're gonna finish the stream off with this one, I think. The game is afoot. Flipped furniture. It's plain to see this room is complete disarray. The bed, table, and chairs, the lamp, everything is upside down. It's almost as if every eye in the room had until recently been happily positioned on the ceiling, before falling straight down on the floor. Every item in the room was on the ceiling. Very suggesting. Indeed, the key here is gravity. Peer-to-peer technology at the last succeeded with freeing us all from the great pull of Earth. Wait, what's the safe number there? The gravity in the room was reversed, then suddenly returned to normality. Wait, what? The inverted furniture clearly reveals the truth about the gravity played in the situation. I quite understand your skepticism, Miss Susato. I too was incredulous at first. However, my conviction, my analysis cemented when I observed this. An anti-gravity device, almost identical to one featured in Dream Mine the other day, in fact. But why does it have a clock on it? Most relevant question indeed. It's a timing device that controls when the gravity direction will switch. There's clearly a requirement for the engineer to be able to restore normal gravity automatically, and the commotion we heard earlier over the other side was the moment the restoration occurred. Yes, the reason why everything in here is turned upside down is the anti-gravity device. See, we're looking forward to explain the state in which we found this room. The direction in which gravity is here was reversed by Mr. Drebber, after being restored to normality in an automatic fashion later by the timer. I've witnessed precisely the scene in a dream I once had when I fell out of bed. Flipped furniture, because gravity was reversed. This one's really out there, I'm not gonna lie. Missing engineer. Now, let's consider the next conundrum. What was our engineer friend's aim? To erect a dispenser, obviously. Indubitably, the greatest clue we have to explain the actions are above our heads. Yes, how is it possible there are footprints all the way there on the ceiling? A question whose answer will lead us neatly to the truth, my dear madam. The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is because there's nearby skylights. Of course, Drebber's aim was singular to escape. However, there is but one way into this room, excepting the skylight, that is... Ah. By inverting the gravity here, Drebber was able to fall conveniently to the ceiling to make his escape to an otherwise inaccessible skylight, leaving the footprints behind its way. But the ceiling here is very high, Mr. Sholmes. If gravity reversal was sudden, would Mr. Drebber have fallen to the ceiling rather violently? Falling up is both scientifically and philosophically a rather interesting concept, I feel. But the man was cornered with nowhere to run, so escape to the skylight was his only option. You may recall I found this in the room earlier, which I believe offers a solution. Oh, the rope. Reach intended a better tool than a rope. By anchoring one end of the wall, the man was able to lower himself safely to the ceiling. Which explains how Mr. Drebber was able to escape this room before our arrival. He reversed the pull of gravity and fled via skylight. And personally, I should very much like to reverse the pull of gravity again now, just for fun. Thus concludes Sherlock Holmes' great deduction of this topsy-turvy puzzle. She's completely spellbound. Mr. Sholmes, there's just one thing that troubles me. I would expect nothing less. You're destined to be troubled by just one thing for the rest of your life. The thing is such a thing actually possible? Anti-gravity device, I mean. I would say that with man's current scientific knowledge at the turn of the 20th century, it's no more possible than instantaneous kinesis, so no. Your whole deduction hinges on it. Ah, but my dear fellow, when you have eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. However improbable it may seem. Huh. It's a marvelous time, wouldn't you agree? One of my more enduring pearls of wisdom. I had Iris come up with the exact phrasing. My original was a bit more clumsy. Yeah, I had a feeling I had read it in something that Mrs. Actually, there is one other thing, Mr. Sholmes. Ah, the spell's broken at last. The rope you found was on the floor, wasn't it? Indeed it was, in lonely coils near the wall. But if Dr. Drebber used to escape the way you described, wouldn't it still be tied to the wall? Mysteries inevitably unravel in the end. As I think you'll find, do ropes. As evidence of such, you need only look at the mystery face of this room, now skillfully unraveled. That argument is circular as the coils of the ropes. I think perhaps we might need to give Mr. Sholmes the usual little helping hand. I'm sure with some minor corrections, the great detective's great deduction will lead us to the truth. Yeah, you're right. We must do it quickly, before Enoch Drebber gets too far away. If you're ready, then let us resume. Sherlock Sholmes' logic and reasoning spectacular. Course correction. Hold it, Mr. Sholmes. It's plain to see this room is complete disarray. The bed, the table, the chairs, the lamp, everything is upside down. Almost as if everyone in the room until recently been happily positioned on the ceiling, before falling to the floor. Every item in the room is on the ceiling. Are you suggesting? Indeed, the key here is gravity. Repair technology has at last succeeded in freeing us from the great pull of the Earth. Where the gravity in the room was reversed and then suddenly restored dramatically. Goodness! The inverted furniture clearly reveals the truth about part gravity. To think gravity could have been reversed in this very room. On the idea enthralling. Only Mr. Sholmes could think of such an explanation. But the man himself admitted it was a scientific impossibility, so yes, you're quite right. We must completely discount the idea at once. Ooh, that it's unusually merciless of you, Mrs. Otto. When you've eliminated the impossible, whatever remains must be the truth. The great detective himself said so, didn't he? While refusing to part with his dreams of an anti-gravity device, true. Yes, I suppose so. Well, let's see if this topsy-turvy seen a little more closely reveals some proof of exactly what gravity in this room was or wasn't doing. Look, Mrs. Otto, when everything seems to be upside down in here, the safe is conspicuously the right side up. Have you noticed? Yes, that's true, but look more closely at the safe's feet. That's a lot of very large bolts fixing it to the floor. Think before you speak, that's what you want to say, isn't it? I really put my foot in my mouth there. I certainly didn't say that.
Take that!
Nope. Unlike every other piece of furniture in the room, this safe is not upside down. So, reversal of gravity can't be the reason for the state of this room. Mr. Narod, I implore you to observe more closely. As you can see, the safe's feet are firmly bolted to the floor, saving it from the effects of gravity. Oh, so it is. There's one thing we can learn from your misguided conclusion. A good deduction is no mean feat. Can we at least make jokes at my expense funny? The reversal of gravity is scientifically impossible, but I actually can prove it didn't occur. Well, to prove our hypothesis wrong, the easiest way is just to find an obvious exception. Let's have a good look around. What does it say here on the inverted furniture exactly? All the furniture here is very conspicuously upside down, certainly. Yeah, it does immediately put you in mind of some strange quirk of gravity, I admit. How could it be a mini whirlwind you passed through here, you think? I'm not sure that's much more plausible than Mr. Sholmes' explanation, unfortunately. Oh dear, saying the first thing that comes into your head isn't the way forward here, it seems. Oh, a flower pot. Upright vase. Well, well, I wasn't expecting to find a pretty bunch of flowers here, that's for sure. Ah, look at that! I know, the slender little vase looks like it's about to topple at any moment, but the flowers are thriving. Somehow it makes you think of a fragility of life, wouldn't you say? To be honest, Mr. Naruhodo, something else about it made a rather deeper impression on me.
Take that!
The upright vase clearly reveals the truth about the part gravity played in this whole incident. Upon my word, Miss Naruto, you surpassed yourself by completely turning my argument on its head. Trying to impress your assistant here, perhaps? No one's trying to steal your spotlight here, Mr. Sholmes, trust me. As you rightly say, though perhaps it appears at first glance all the furniture is upside down. The unassuming slender vase is standing keenly to attention. And unlike the large safe, there's nothing affixing it to the floor. And it's the exception that breaks the rule. In short, much as it pains me, the gravity in this room was never inverted at all. My deepest sympathies for your loss. Oh, poor Mr. Sholmes. The show must go on, so let's continue with our deductions. Now that we know this contrivance is not in fact an anti-gravity, there remains but one other possibility. You don't say. Someone deliberately turned over every piece of furniture here. Which might sound obvious, but leaves one mystery very unsolved. Namely, why would anyone choose to do that? Quite naturally, there is an explanation. And the reason why everything is turned upside down is because of the anti-gravity device. He's absolutely determined that this device must have something to do with it, isn't he? I'm afraid the lure of an exciting scientific explanation is too strong. Well, there's no doubt somebody did this. Somebody turned all this furniture over. So whoever it was must have been a reason. I'm afraid nothing comes to mind at all, though. Well, let's look around and see if the answer presents itself. We've already established that gravity wasn't actually reversed in here, haven't we? In other words, this isn't an anti-gravity device at all. Which makes me very curious to know what sort of device it is. I think for now it's clear we're looking for an answer elsewhere. Look, there's something written on the other side of the armchair. Oh yes, it says safe. The combination. As in safe and secure? As in secure lockable box, I think. Admittedly more likely. Well, there's a large safe bolt to the floor on either side of this room, so yes. So you mean this number would let us open it. I wonder why it's written here, though.
Take that!
He was trying to find the safe combination. Yes, the reason why everything in here has been turned upside down is because of the safe combination. Precisely, I believe, Mr. Naruhodo, that you have a very similar experience once, did you not? Yes, last year, when I brought a lottery ticket, no, the ticket downside a cover book, just in case. That's it. For people forgetful souls at heart, always make sure to have a note of important information. Just keeping the ticket itself safe would be more than sensible, I think. And what, pray, happens next, Mr. Naruhodo? On the day the draw came around, I'd forgotten which book I'd written the number in and had to turn my room upside down to find it. That's it. For people who are forgetful souls at heart and always forget where they've noted things down. Not if you always note things in the same place. I actually won the second prize, you know. But I couldn't remember which magazine I'd slipped the ticket into, so I had to turn my room upside. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo, but I believe I've proved my point now. Which is that very similar scenario has clearly unfolded in this room. Finding himself requiring access to the safe, the occupant in this room needed the combination. He remembered he'd written on the underside of a piece of furniture, but forgot which one, leading to the state in which we now find the room. Yes, Mr. Drebber overturned all the furniture in a desperate hurry to locate the combination code that would unlock the safe. To find the safe combination. solved. Now, let us continue the next conundrum. What was our engineer friend's aim? Indubitably, the greatest clue we have to explain this action is above our heads. Yes, how's it possible there are footprints all the way on the ceiling? A question whose answer will lead us nearly to truth, my dear madam. The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is because of the nearby skylights. Well, if a change in direction of gravity can't explain it, then how did those footprints get there? Yeah, I feel as though that particular mystery has just become even harder to solve. I can't think of any other way to explain it all. Oh, life was so much simpler in those Halcyon days when gravity could be reversed. It was minutes ago. Those Halcyon days never existed in the first place. Well, I suppose we're going to simply put our faith in Sholmes and observe the area in more detail. Putting our faith in Mr. Sholmes is what got us in this situation in the first place. Balloon. This is a gas balloon, is it? It's tiny, but it does seem to be a real balloon. Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's helium keeping it up. Green gas balloon. Why does that seem to ring a bell with me? If you can see, there are footprints on this balloon as well. Oh, yeah, sure, that's a clue, isn't it? Though what it tells us, I'm not sure. Shoe. It's hard to believe, but there's a shoe up here, look! Oh yes, and there's more footprints on this little balloon, too. Perhaps the shoe was thrown up here and became lodged. If so, then judging from the number of footprints, it must have been thrown up several times. I wouldn't be throwing up shoes up at a ceiling, though. Oh dear, that's beyond me, I'm afraid.
Take that!
The shoe. The reason there are footprints on the ceiling is because of the nearby shoe. In closer inspection, there are clearly footprints all over the balloon as well. In other words, the aim was never the skylight at all, but the balloon. Oh, but for what purpose? A green balloon. That seems somewhat familiar. There's a piece of green balloon's envelope that Mr. Naruhodo and Iris found at the scene. And inside the green balloon, Mr. Gotts claims he saw above the stage when it happened. Was the second bird cage, the crux of the whole instantaneous kinesis deception. You mean to say... If we assume the balloon in here is a model of one used on that day, there's a strong possibility that something may be concealed inside of it. Something our absconder was desperate to retrieve before making a hasty getaway. But the balloon's out of reach, hence why he resorted to projectile, namely the shoe. Most probably, Drebber intended to tear a hole in the envelope by assailing with a shoe. However, his efforts were thwarted when the shoe itself became a prisoner of those lofty heights. Oh dear. We desperately need to examine that balloon, if only there was some way we could see inside. You may recall that I found this in the room earlier, which I believe offers a solution. Oh, the rope. To reach the intended destination, what better tool than the rope? Mr. Sholmes managed to bring the deduction back to the rope. I have to admit, that was clever. So we just throw the rope up to the balloon and then pull it down with us on the ground? Which is easier said than done, I feel, and could take us a very long time as well. True, perhaps we need a more surefire method. In fact, we already have one, don't we?
Take that!
Crossbow. To reach the intended destination, what better tool than this crossbow? It was found at the scene, in fact. In all likelihood, it belongs to Mr. Drebber. If the man had only brought away with him that day, he could avoid losing a shoe in such a critical time as this. So, shall we? Your curiosity is deeply stirred, no doubt, my dear fellows. What is it that Enoch Drebber has hidden inside that balloon? Bam. Ah! What the? A waxwork head? Indeed it is. The waxwork head inside of a metal mask. The mask's shut tight and fastened with a strong, quite impenetrable lock. So we can't see the face inside, that means. Just a moment. This is the head of a waxwork model. What does that mean? Oh, goodness. I see you've joined the dots, Mr. Zotto. Excellent. Ah, of course, a headless waxwork model. In case of the abducted Madame Tuspel model that you largely solved. There's only the head of the killer that was still missing. Indeed it was. But I believe Madame Tuspels will now have to settle for a sizable account with me. This, as you have now surmised, is the head of the infamous professor. Yeah, but why is it here? This conclusively confirms my suspicions. The man responsible for stealing the professor from Madame Tuspels and returning it later day was none other than Enoch Drebber. This is incredible. Professor Harebrain's case and the waxwork abduction are linked by Enoch Drebber's workshop. Well, it appears our logical pleasure cruise has come to an end, my dear fellows. This lock does look to be very strong, doesn't it? There's definitely no way you could remove the mask yourself if it was put on you. What a terrible way to treat someone, even a convicted criminal. I know, it's starting to make me livid, actually. Mr. Naruhodo, please. I mean, just think about it. Imagine if you had an itch on your cheek all of a sudden. You'd be utterly helpless. Well, yes, that is true, but I'm not sure that warrants quite so much anger. Oh, right, sorry. So this was the man in the iron mask. And the fact that we still can't see his face means it's going to be plot relevant. All that remains is, yes, to speak with the architect of the adventure. The architect? You mean Mr. Drebber? It seems quite impossible he escaped via the skylights. Obviously, the man must still be in this room. What? His location should be abundantly clear. We simply reflect on the journey we've made together during this deduction. Enoch Drebber's right here, somewhere in this room. So, Mr. Naruhodo, will you do the honors? Yes, of course. Mr. Drebber's hiding place must be the safe.
Take that!
The large safe. Before we gained access to this back room, we heard noises from in here, which tells us the engineer is still in the building at the point in time. He was, in fact, searching for the combination to his safe. And pressed for time, he made no attempt to right the furniture or overturn the process, from which we can deduce his search of the combination happened very recently indeed. In summary, Mr. Enoch Drebber is at this very moment inside the safe. This concludes Herlock Sholmes' great deduction of this topsy-turvy puzzle. Inside the safe. Deduction complete. Elementary. So, Mr. Naruhodo, I think perhaps it's time we ended this game of hide-and-seek, don't you? By opening the safe, you mean? What else? Alright, let's see. The combination was... Oh, I knew that. Alright, then here goes. You found me. Oh, he has an artificial arm? Oh, so he's a plus and minus. Right then, sir. Mr. Enoch Drebber, I presume. Correct. You better start talking, you tricked Professor Harebrain and with that bogus machine you built. And you shall have to explain the theft of the waxwork from Madame Tuspels as well. Whilst I would be delighted to answer your many questions. Personally, I would advise that you deactivate my little parcel first. Deactivate? Parcel? I refer to, of course, to the time bomb. I left it in a most prominent position. Ah. Ha ha ha. I see. Stunned silence. You are all gearing up to die with me, then. No! Mr. Sholmes, with only 7 seconds to spare. That was too close for comfort. I got one foot in the grave already. Are you trying to help us get us a killer, or get us killed? Mr. Sholmes' deductions can be completely life-altering, can't they? Well, my dear fellows, that was a close shave. The resemblance to the anti-gravity device is really quite startling, I must say. Anti-gravity devices don't exist. Phew, I wouldn't push it, Mr. Sholmes. Alright, the time bomb first. You got a death wish, have ya? Hiding right beside a ticking time bomb? Oh please, why do you suppose I chose to hide inside the safe? It is no ordinary safe. It is specially designed. A dynamite explosion would not leave a scratch on it. So in fact, the safe was the only safe place. Precisely. But once you climbed inside, you wouldn't have been able to get out again. I invite you to look more closely. The safe is fitted with a handle on the inside to allow the door to be unlocked from within. Ah, so it is. I had always intended to blow this place to smithers in any case. I just wasn't expecting uninvited guests to come along and screw up my plans. Do you mean to say your plan to blow us all up? No, that was unforeseen. What do you mean? Most people run, you see, when they see a ticking timer at their feet. I calculated the time required to retreat to a safe distance and set the device accordingly. But your seemingly endless discord in here threw a spanner in the works. Is something wrong, Gregson? Do I have something on my face, besides the usual eyes, ears, nose, mouth? Alright, what happened here? What on earth happened in here? You found me, haven't you? No need to screw me down any further. Everything in here is precisely what it seems. Yeah, well, we'll be giving all a thorough going over, don't you worry, Drebber. What fails to click with me is how you were able to locate my workshop. That I was not expecting. When I heard whistling from the other room, I knew it was time to bolt. Whistling? Ah, that would have been me. Oh. For some reason, I woke in fine fettle today. No words, just tightly squeezed chips. Clearly I must have a screw loose though, as I couldn't remember the combination to the safe. And another one loose, as I couldn't remember on which piece of furniture I'd written it down. I also found a rope over by the wall. Yes, I had hoped to exit through the skylight, but sadly the rope was too short. So I then set about searching for the combination code to the open safe. And burning the incriminating blueprints, don't forget. Regrettably though, you failed to retrieve the head from the balloon among the rafters. And after that, you hid yourself inside the safe, having first set this parcel ticking. Well, I had no intention of being nailed by the police. Well, I think we have a fairly good idea of what's been going on here now, but what about the two incidents you're evidently involved in recently? Professor Harebrain's instantaneous kinesis experiment at the Great Exhibition, and the waxwork model you stole, which this head belongs to. That is no ordinary head, you know. It's the head of the professor. Clad in the mask with a lock so strong, I am unable to open it safely to reveal the killer's identity. I've been considering carrying it around as protection. After all, that is enough. What's going on here, Gregson? I'm sure you're aware that I have sole jurisdiction to investigate here. Yes, well, Dr. Seath again. So the forensic science investigation team is here. You know full well this engineer is a key witness. What, are you allowing this lawyer access to him? If Lord Strongheart knew of this, you'd be finished. You lot, leave at once. My dear madam, there's no need for such a threatening tone, I assure you. After all, there's no way to greet an old acquaintance, is it, Miss Dr. Seath? Hello, Sholmes. Mr. Sholmes knows Dr. Seath. If it's protecting the machine next door that's causing a sour expression on your face, you're quite misguided. It's really nothing more than a shell. Get out. But of course, we'll show ourselves the door. I see you haven't softened at all. Mr. Naruto, yes. It appears that our delightfully entertaining investigations have run their course for today. But Mr. Sholmes, let us leave this place in the doctor's capable hands. I said get out now. All of you. Your presence here is not required either, Gregson. Understood. But I'll just say one thing before I head off. If it wasn't for this lawyer and his companions, we'd never have found this place, and the whole workshop would have been blown to bits. There was a time bomb set in here. This lot disarmed. Inspector. Something giving you the chuckle, has it, Trevor? Ah, so sorry. Did not mean to offend. You're quite right, of course. You did disarm the time bomb, didn't you? Yes, you did disarm that one. Oh no. It was an hour later we heard of the enormous explosion that ripped through the experimentation stage of the Great Exhibition. Professor Harriman's invention and all of its secrets were blown away forever. This complicates things significantly. Ooh, dang. 3.5 hours. This was very worth it. This was a very interesting case. Alright, the next part of the trial. But that's going to have to wait until next time. Well then, thank you for watching. Hope you had a good time. I save these VODs for allows, so if you ever need them, they'll be there. Or if you want to see some of my older ones, I have a link to my YouTube channel in my About page. Thank you, and I'll see you next time.